Chapter 3161. With Heavenbreaker's help, Zi-Chen left with Yang Wei and the others. When they walked out of the space, they were already far away from the battlefield. Do you need me to arrange for other people to help you? Zi-Chen looked at the children of gods and asked. They were only at the third stage realm. Logically speaking, they should be able to protect themselves. However, with the entire god realm in the midst of a battle, all kinds of accidents could happen. No need. Yang Wei shook his head and rejected Zi-Chen's good intentions. Then, the group cupped their fists at Zi-Chen and turned to leave. After this incident, their relationship with Zi-Chen had become much more harmonious. Even Xin Lin had lost her previous arrogance. In the current god realm, the children of gods were in an awkward position. It was fine if they were powerful, but if they were not, compared to the other god races, the children of gods would have a hard time. Zi-Chen watched the group leave. With his current experience, these people could no longer be his enemy. After returning to the Tree City, he gave the resources he exchanged from the Divine Monarch Celestial Domain to Fina. Su Mengyaro and the others were in seclusion, so she was in charge of everything. The creatures she controlled did not need any extra resources. They only needed to devour the corpses of their enemies. However, the other god races and the natives involved in the battle required resources. These resources could only be exchanged with contribution points. After returning to the treehouse, Zi-Chen began to focus on refining the Lightning Divine Palace. The earlier he controlled the Lightning Divine Palace, the earlier the existences in the Lightning Divine Palace could join the battle. As for how many experts there were in the Lightning Divine Palace, Zi-Chen was not sure. However, it was definitely not a small number. After Yang Wei and the others bade farewell to Zi-Chen, they sighed in their hearts. Originally, they were still able to contend with Zi-Chen as equals. Now, it was obvious that they could not. The battle outside Zi-Chen's city was just a shockwave, but it was enough to shake their hearts. Where are we going now? Ben Senlu asked. The original Ben Senlu relied on his heavenly godfather to look down on everyone in the world, even the sons of heavenly gods. His attitude toward Qi Wei was extremely vile. However, now that he no longer had anyone to rely on, he restrained himself a lot. Most importantly, in the Divine Monarch Heavenly Path and Divine Monarch Heavenly Domain, if it wasn't for Yang Ming, they might not have been able to survive until now. Now, it wasn't just Ben Senlu, the others were also at a loss. The divine world had changed greatly, they didn't even know where they were. How about we go to my house first? Xin Lin suggested. Her so-called home was naturally her clan. This was also the only thing Xin Lin could rely on. They looked at each other and then nodded. Xin Lin's family was an old family, so they definitely knew about the current situation in the god realm. When the time came, they could borrow the passage from there. Seeing that everyone nodded, Xin Lin took out a necklace and activated the teleportation array in the necklace. A beam of divine light appeared and wrapped around their bodies before disappearing. His clone had been refining the Lightning Divine Palace for quite some time, but he didn't make any progress. This was also the reason why Zi-Chen decided to refine it himself. He originally thought that he would need a long time to refine it himself, but he didn't expect that Zi-Chen's soul would only need to land on it, as if it had recognized him as its master. In less than a year's time, he had completely refined the Lightning Divine Palace. In his world, the Lightning Divine Palace released the light of lightning, with countless lightning snakes revolving around it. In Zi-Chen's perception, the Lightning Divine Palace had already revealed its full appearance. It no longer looked like a large hall, but layers of space. Within these spaces, there were extremely powerful life auras. In the past, there were existences of various levels in this space, but now, there were only Ancestor King experts comparable to Divine Kings, and the highest level was 8th grade. After gaining control of the Lightning Divine Palace, Zi-Chen's understanding of the Lightning Divine Palace had naturally increased. He knew that as long as his level increased, the level of these tyrannical existences in the Lightning Divine Palace would also increase. Swish! His figure disappeared from the world, and when he reappeared, he was already in a special space. This was the last space in the Lightning Divine Palace. Below was the abyss, above was the Heaven's Gate, and this was also the only place that Zi Chen couldn't control. In the past, Zi Chen tried to open the Heaven's Gate, but he didn't succeed. Now, he raised his head and glanced at the Heaven's Gate, but he didn't try, because he still wouldn't succeed. There was a seal in front of the Heaven's Gate, and that seal required a powerful energy to open. The current Zi Chen clearly didn't possess that kind of power. The reincarnation that was mentioned in the past, if it wasn't for his accident, it would have continued to reincarnate endlessly. That was because a heaven-defying expert of that level would never be able to open the Heaven's Gate. His figure flashed again, and Zi Chen was already outside of the Lightning Divine Palace. There were many experts in the Lightning Divine Palace, and they weren't any weaker than the Divine Kings controlled by Fina or the Dark Heavenly Ants controlled by the Ant Queen. Once they joined the battle, the situation would instantly reverse. Without a great opportunity, Zi Chen would obviously need a very long time to reach the 9th grade. That time was too far away. Now that he was at the 8th grade, he could easily deal with the 9th grade of this world, so he didn't need to rush to break through. This war had already lasted for several hundred years, and Zi Chen had always been in a passive state. He felt that there was a need to launch a counterattack. He called everyone out, including the monk and the rest who were in seclusion. They had already successfully reached the 7th grade, and if they used their full strength, they could easily destroy the 8th grade. They wouldn't be at a disadvantage against the 9th grade, and could even suppress them. Good. That's great. We should have taken the initiative to attack long ago. Hearing Zi Chen's suggestion to attack forcefully, the monk suddenly slapped his thigh, and was abnormally excited. Obviously, he wasn't prepared to go into seclusion again. Along the way, everyone had experienced too many battles, so of course, they wouldn't be afraid of battle. This suggestion didn't receive any rebuttal at all, and it was decided just like that. How do you plan to attack? Fina asked. Let me bring along one of my clones, and I'll directly attack into the depths. If it's possible, we'll kill our way to the core region of the foreign races. If we really kill our way to that point, the pressure on our side should be reduced by a lot. This was Zi Chen's plan from the start. They would advance in a straight line towards the depths. Who do you need to bring along? Fina asked once again. For the time being, I'll bring along the people from Lightning Divine Palace. When we don't have enough manpower, Ichen will bring the people from the world-annihilating Divine Bell over to help me. Following that, everyone discussed the details of the attack. In the meantime, the monk, Zhong Haotian, Devil Ape and the rest were definitely brought along by Zi Chen. Their battle prowess was tyrannical, and they were Zi Chen's right-hand men. Fina didn't have any objections to this. If it was just defending the city, her men were more than enough. Zi Chen's men were all in Lightning Divine Palace, and he didn't need to deliberately gather them. With just a thought, they would appear. Chapter 3162. Fina gave Zi Chen a doppelganger. This doppelganger had full authority to deal with all the mother nests they encountered on the way. Fina's doppelganger had a special ability to sense the mother nests. Tyrant, Devil Ape, Zhong Haotian, Longhu, Flying Divine Tiger, and other existences all followed Zi Chen. Apart from these powerful existences, the only one left was the Ancestor King from the Lightning God Temple in Zi Chen's world. Heaven Breaker remained in the city and did not follow them. He spent most of his time sleeping, as if he was recovering from his injuries. Zi Chen left the battlefield and went straight to the depths of the mother nests. The world opened, and his figure disappeared. Using teleportation, he reached the depths after several times. He saw a huge city. This city was similar to the first-grade divine general-level mother nest he had destroyed before. However, this city had become empty, and there was not even a single divine general guarding it. The whereabouts of the mother nests were unknown. After investigating this area for a while, Zi Chen did not find anything valuable, so he continued to go deeper. He teleported in a straight line, so he quickly found the second mother nest. The city where this mother nest was located was also empty. It was unknown whether they had all left to go to other places, or whether they had joined the battle against Zi Chen's forces. As he continued to go deeper, he found another mother nest city. This time, he finally saw the existence of the mother nest. Apart from the mother nest, There were also some divine race members guarding this place. However, their numbers were relatively small. Zichen did not intend to hide himself. His figure flashed and appeared from the darkness. Tyrant and the others appeared beside him. Divine race. Seeing the arrival of Zichen's group, one of the divine race members cried out in alarm. "Which force are you from? Why are you here?" If it was any other time, the divine race and the divine race would definitely fight to the death. However, the two sides were in a cooperative relationship, so these divine race members chose to ask questions instead of attacking directly. Tyrant and the others rushed forward, releasing their terrifying auras. They did not hide their killing intent at all. Logically speaking, they, who were at the divine king level, should not deal with these weak divine race members. However, this was war. Zichen wanted to advance in a straight line, and all the foreign races he encountered would be killed by him. At the same time, this was also a warning to alert the enemy. The battle broke out, and the Celestials rushed toward Tyrant's group. They didn't care if the gap between their cultivation realms was huge, and they fought with all their might. In the heart of the city, the area covered by the clouds began to surge. Apparently, the broodmother had discovered the abnormality and wanted to escape. Wang. The void trembled as rays of light pierced through the clouds and landed on the huge body of the broodmother. Originally, the space force around the broodmother's body was shrouded in light, but after these rays of light fell, the space force around the broodmother dissipated in an instant. A powerful pressure suppressed the mother nest, causing it to be unable to move. The mother nest screamed in horror as a spear descended from the sky, piercing through the clouds and landing on the mother nest. With a loud explosion of energy, the broodmother let out a blood-curdling scream. After killing a mother nest, Zichen's figure flickered and appeared above the dead mother nest, collecting it. This was a level 1 mother nest. If the resources were divided, it would allow many level 9 divine envoys to break through to the divine king realm. There should be other mother nests along the way. Fina's clone arrived beside Zichen. Zichen understood the meaning of Fina's clone. He didn't choose to teleport and instead flew forward. Sure enough, Fina's clone continued to sense other mother nests. Although these mother nests were only at the level of divine envoys, there were many of them. This was the most basic resource in the divine world. Back when the 9 gods of the god race were in charge of this world, the broodmother, which was only at the level of an oracle, was still a great resource. Although this resource wasn't very useful in this chaotic era, it was only useful for existences like Zichen. In the divine world, there were many trading places. If these resources were sold there, it would definitely cause a sensation. It was just that Zichen's city was under siege, so he didn't have such a place. Zichen went deeper, killing all the mother nests he encountered along the way. This time, his goal was clear: kill his way to the core. On the 3rd month, Zichen suddenly felt the summons of Mother Nest Vigni. He had a soul connection with Vigni. Even if they were far enough apart, they could still sense each other's presence. Vigni's sudden summons caused Zichen's expression to change. He secretly guessed that something had happened to Tree City. He stopped, called Tyrant and the others, and turned back without hesitation. "Aren't we going to kill our way to the core? Why are you suddenly going back?" Tyrant asked, puzzled. "Vigni is summoning us. Something might have happened to Tree City," Zichen said in a low voice. Along the way, Zichen performed long-distance teleportations. After a short half an hour, Zichen arrived at the outskirts of Tree City. The battle outside was still fierce. The foreign races hadn't broken through the city, so everything seemed normal. But why would they summon him? Zichen's figure flashed, and he directly arrived above Tree City. This place was shrouded by the power of laws, so no one could reach it. Zichen's figure descended. The power of laws distorted, and a gap appeared. Zichen descended and arrived at Tree City. What happened? Arriving at the city, Zichen transmitted to Vigni. "Someone is looking for you, Master." "Who?" "I don't know, just an old man." After a simple exchange, Zichen arrived at the city. At this time, he felt an aura not far away. It was the treehouse where Yi Qian lived. The aura was also released by Yi Qian. Pushing open the door of the treehouse, An old man was sitting in the living room. Seeing that old man, Zi Chen was stunned. He recognized him. He was the butler who followed the tower battle heavenly god. Zi Chen had seen him many times. Young master. Hearing the movement behind him, the butler immediately stood up and bowed to Zi Chen. Why have you come? Zi Chen was very surprised, but also very happy. He had a very good impression of the butler. Come, sit. Is the situation in Heavenly God City okay? This old man has come to ask for help, the butler said, his expression very unnatural. Something happened in Heavenly God City? Zi Chen's expression changed. Not Heavenly God City. It's Xin Lin. Yi Chen spoke. Xin Lin. Zi Chen was stunned. He was the one who had brought Xin Lin back to this world. It had only been a little more than a year. What had happened to her? Moreover, why was the butler of Heavenly God City asking for help? Where were the others? Chapter 3163. Xin Lin's family wants to form a marriage alliance with the Thorpe family. Yi Chen said with an ugly expression. With this simple sentence, Zi Chen understood the reason. When the heavenly gods were still around, many forces would form marriage alliances with heavenly gods, giving birth to children of heavenly gods, strengthening the relationship between both parties. It was the same for the 9 heavenly gods. Marriage alliances were a common method used by many families of the god race to ensure that the family would be passed down from generation to generation. What is the Thorpe family's background? This was the first time Zi Chen heard of this family, but he was not familiar with the divine world. The Thorpe family's current generation expert, Thorpe, is on the king board. He was on the king board when the 9 heavenly gods were still around. The steward said, Thorpe is ranked 15th on the king board and is the adopted son of the 2nd heavenly god, Luo Jin's. But even if he's on the king board, he shouldn't use Xin Lin for a marriage alliance, right? After all, Xin Lin is the daughter of a heavenly god. Also, does Ben Senlu know about this? Zi Chen asked doubtfully. If he was the adopted son of the 2nd heavenly god, then he should have some relationship with Ben Senlu. Ben Senlu was risking his life with Xin Lin, so he should have prevented this from happening. The steward smiled bitterly and said, when the 9 heavenly gods were still in the divine world, the children of heavenly gods were a supreme honor. However, after the 9 heavenly gods left, the news spread that the heavenly gods would never return. Without strength, the children of heavenly gods would become the target of public criticism. Thorpe had never agreed to the marriage alliance with the Aemon family, but after goddess Xin Lin returned, he relented. The Aemon family naturally understood Thorpe's intention, so the marriage alliance partner became goddess Xin Lin. If they dare to do this, aren't they worried that the heavenly gods will return and punish them? Zi Chen asked again. The steward sighed. This sigh caused Zi Chen's expression to change. On the other side, Yi Chen's expression became gloomy. This time, we came with young master because we had no other choice. Perhaps the children of heavenly gods enjoyed too much glory in the past. Now that the heavenly gods have left, these children of heavenly gods are not living well. The divine son Benson Lu that the young master spoke of was currently within the Aemon family. Although he said that he had been left behind to receive them, he was actually being held captive. Aside from divine son Benson Lu, divine son Sini and divine son Xavier are also there. The steward said helplessly, this old man has no other way. After thinking about it, I can only come to seek the help of Miss and young master. Before coming here, I went to look for the other divine sons, but no one was willing to help. So even if I knew that the divine daughter had a grudge with Miss and young master, I could only thicken my skin and come here. If it were any other expert, it would be fine, but that Thorpe's reputation is very bad after the Empyrean god left. Just like this world Sandro, all the goddesses who fall into his hands usually end up in a bad state. Zi Chen looked at Yi Chen. He couldn't make the decision on this matter. Seeing Zi Chen looking at her, Yi Chen said, I hate Xin Lin. I really hate her. The butler sighed. Yi Chen changed the topic, but, in the end, she is my half-sister. No matter how much I hate her, I can't watch her jump into the fire pit. Zi Chen smiled. He understood Yi Chen very well and knew what kind of person she was. When are we leaving? Yi Qian and Zi Chen looked at the butler. The butler said, "This old man has been walking for a long time. The sooner we leave, the better." Aemon was Xinlin's family. When the pagoda battle heavenly god was here, the Aemon family viewed Xinlin as the apple of their eye. As long as she didn't overstep her boundaries, the family's resources were at her disposal. This also allowed Xinlin to dispatch a lot of people to attack Yi Qian's forces many times. In comparison, the pagoda battle heavenly god didn't care about Xinlin and let her do as she pleased. But the Aemon family didn't care and didn't dare to care. They only treated Xinlin better. This was also why Xinlin decided to let everyone return to her family first after she returned. But she didn't expect that not only did the situation in the divine world change, even the Aemon family she was in had changed completely. The elders who doted on her the most in the past had become incomparably cold and indifferent. They even arranged a marriage for her. A marriage alliance. Xinlin didn't expect that such a thing would happen to her. Naturally, she resisted with all her might. But it was useless. Just like how she felt an unprecedented amount of love and care in the past, it didn't matter even if she ran amok. This time, she felt an unprecedented indifference and even a lot of killing intent. That's right, threatening words sounded every day. If she continued to refuse, what awaited her was naturally death. At this moment, Xinlin woke up. She was no longer the willful goddess of the past. Following Yang Wei and the others to the Divine King's celestial domain, she had truly seen life and death. After being tempered, her willpower and wisdom couldn't be compared to before. She didn't resist anymore. She seemed to be silent and tacitly accepted her impending fate. "I want to see my friend." In the room, Xinlin said faintly while being served by more than 10 maids. The leading maid was in a difficult position. "I only want to see my friend. With you all guarding here and so many experts outside, are you afraid that I'll run away?" Xinlin turned around and stared at the maid, her eyes filled with coldness. The maid bowed to Xinlin and left the room. Outside the room, there was a 7th-grade Divine King standing there like an iron tower. The maid and the 7th-grade Divine King had a simple conversation. A moment later, Xinlin's request was made known to the upper echelons of the Aemon family. "What do you all think?" An elder of the Aemon family looked at the people present. "Their realms are too low. Even if they meet, they won't be able to affect us. On the contrary, if we prevent them from meeting, Xinlin will feel conflicted and make things difficult for us." "I'm afraid that won't be good," said another elder. The other elders nodded in succession. This was a meeting of many elders. The head of the family didn't participate. Soon, Xinlin was able to meet Ben Senlu, Sina, Xavier, and Qi Wei as she wished. However, compared to the previous 3 children of God, Qi Wei, the adopted son of a god, was in a bad situation. His aura was very weak, and he was injured. Clearly, the Aemon family had taken special care of him after coming here. "How are you?" Xinlin looked at Qi Wei. Qi Wei shook his head and said, "I won't die yet." "Now, what should we do?" Xinlin looked at them. The previous servants had all retreated. Ben Senlu and the others looked helpless. Now, they only had the status of children of God, but they didn't have the power of children of God. No one respected them anymore. Moreover, they didn't have the slightest freedom here. Under such circumstances, they couldn't do anything at all. Subconsciously, they all looked at Qi Wei. This had almost become a habit. Every time they needed to make a choice, Qi Wei would make the decision, and they would give their final opinion. However, they would always do as Qi Wei said. Chapter 3164. Find Zi Chen? Hearing this, the 4 of them were startled. Ben Senlu said, "He is willing to help us." If it was in the past, Ben Senlu would not have said we because this is Xinlin's own matter, it has nothing to do with them. But after so many years of tempering together, he has already approved of them. Although their relationship with Zi Chen is not as hostile as before, they do not think that Zi Chen will help them when it comes to Edmund and Thorpe. Because they are enemies with Zi Chen. Qi Wei said, "Facing the current situation of the divine realm, no one will help us. Even your own family will not help us." Sina said, "How about I try?" Qi Wei shook his head. It is useless. Your family must have known about this long ago, but they did not come because they do not want to get involved. The four of them became silent. Even if the divine realm is in chaos, their family must have heard about such a big matter, but no one came. This attitude is indeed thought-provoking. Think of a way to find Zi Chen. I know him. If there is anyone in the divine realm who will not hesitate to offend two powers to save us, it is only him. Qi Wei looked at Xin Lin and said, moreover, you are Yi Qian's sister. No matter how much you two do not get along, this cannot be changed. Just based on this point, she will come to save you. Just like how I understand Zi Chen, I also understand Yi Qian. The four of them became silent again. If it was them, if the enemy was in trouble, it would be good if they did not step in and step on them. It would be impossible to save them. The biggest problem we are facing now is how to pass the news to Zi Chen. You must know that Zi Chen is at war, the news is blocked, so. Qi Wei smiled bitterly, but our situation is still not good. It will be difficult to pass the news. At this moment, the door suddenly opened. The level 7, who was guarding outside like an iron tower, walked in. Under the shocked gazes of several people, he grabbed Shakes's collar and walked out. What are you doing? Ben Senlu and the others stood up and angrily stared at the level 7. Yang Wei smiled bitterly. Although he had isolated himself from the outside world, his cultivation level was still too low. Trying to sow discord, you deserve to die. Level 7 said coldly. If you kill him, then on the day of the wedding, you will only see a corpse. Xin Lin said in a cold tone. Level 7 smiled disdainfully. If you die, these people will die too. The son of a heavenly god has no value in the god realm. Then, he dragged Yang Wei out of the room. He didn't know if it was because of Xin Lin's threat. They didn't kill Ji Wei, but they didn't let him off easily either. He was hung on a tall stone pillar. The surface of the stone pillar was filled with patterns. Occasionally, a beam of light would appear from below and extend upwards. His towering body was enveloped by the light. It was as if he was being electrocuted, constantly trembling. His body trembled, but he did not make the slightest sound. However, his bloodshot eyes clearly indicated the pain he was suffering. Ben Sonlu and the others were standing by the window and could see this scene. Their faces were filled with anger. It's my fault. Xin Lin's face was full of tears. Goddess, from now on, you have 2 hours to meet each other every day. Now, it's time. The female official came in and said politely to Xin Lin. However, her expression was not polite at all. Everyone knew that the marriage with Thorpe was just a relationship of interest between aristocratic families. When Xin Lin went there, whether she could survive under Thorpe's torture was another matter. As for using Thorpe's power to rise again, it was almost impossible. Because of Thorpe's special hobby, Xin Lin was doomed to have no chance to rise again. When will you let him go? Xin Lin asked coldly. The female official said, after the wedding. During this period, he will be tortured every day. However, please don't worry, Goddess, we will have people to watch over him. He will not die. However, after a long time, his foundation will be destroyed. Not only will his cultivation level stagnate, but he may also fall permanently. When will the wedding be? 2 months. The female official said with a smile. Bring it forward. Hearing Xin Lin's words, Ben Senlu and others turned to look at her. In the past, Aemon family allowed me to run amok. Now, it's time to pay for it. This is my life. Xin Lin chuckled. However, her smile was filled with desolation. Who would have thought that the dignified daughter of a god would be reduced to a forced marriage? Originally, the wedding was 2 months later. However, because of Xin Lin's personal request, it was brought forward by a month. When Thorpe heard the news, he was especially happy. He said that this wedding must be lively and spectacular. As the 15th expert on the king list, it meant that he was one of the 15 strongest experts in the divine world. Naturally, his status was extremely high. A month passed quickly. Aemon family was decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was a celebratory atmosphere. Ku Wei endured a month of attacks from the stone pillars. His aura had become very weak. However, during this month, he did not make a sound. He was like a mute. Every day, Xin Lin would stand at the window and watch Ku Wei suffer. She did not try to ask for help. She only hoped that the time would come soon. Aemon family became very lively. Many powers came to congratulate them. The female official brought her maids into the room. The leading maid was holding a rainbow-colored feather robe. The radiance from the robe dyed the entire room with rainbow-colored colors. "Goddess, we have to speed up. Lord Thorpe will be here soon," the female official said respectfully. Xin Lin nodded. She moved her gaze away from Ku Wei. After a moment, Xin Lin, who was wearing a rainbow-colored feather robe, was brought into the main hall like a fairy. The place was very lively. Although the people who came to congratulate them were all suppressing their auras, Xin Lin still felt a heavy pressure. Only experts were qualified to come. Thorpe was sitting on the main seat. He was wearing a matching feather robe. His face was full of smiles. Looking at Xin Lin, who was walking over and looking at her beautiful face, his eyes flashed with eagerness. However, there was a trace of cruelty in the depths of his eyes. Obviously, he was already thinking about how to torture this goddess who was usually high and mighty at night. So what if she was a goddess? Didn't she still become a plaything under Thorpe's crotch? Thorpe snorted in his heart. He walked forward and was about to pull Xin Lin to the main seat. Ben Sen Lu and the others looked at the scene in despair. They had already found the people from their own powers in the crowd. Before they could ask for help, they were reprimanded. It seemed that the outcome was already decided. At this moment, the void above the wedding trembled slightly. A passage appeared. A person walked out of the passage. At the same time, a voice sounded. Chapter 3165. Such an unforeseen event startled everyone. Then, they looked up and saw someone appear in the sky. After seeing the people in the sky, many people had strange expressions. "It's him." Ben Senlu also saw the person in the sky. His expression immediately changed. His eyes were filled with disbelief, but more than that, he was ecstatic. He looked to the side and saw the excitement in Xavier and Sina's eyes. Xin Lin also noticed the people in the sky. Her eyes immediately became moist. A warm current flowed through her heart. She felt touched like never before. "Are you here to watch the ceremony? Then come down quickly. The wedding is about to begin." At this moment, a cold voice sounded from below. Zi Chen, who was standing at the front, said, "No, we're not here to watch the ceremony. We're here to stop this wedding." His words caused an uproar. Then, all kinds of angry voices sounded. Thorpe looked at Zi Chen, who was standing in the sky. A disdainful sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. A mere level 8 dared to behave atrociously here. He was simply courting death. He didn't even need to do anything to resolve the crisis here. Xin Lin's family obviously didn't know Zi Chen. They also weren't familiar with Yi Chen, who was beside Zi Chen. However, they recognized the old man standing behind Zi Chen. That man was called Silo. He was the steward of the Tower Battle God. However, after the Sky God left, Steward Silo stayed in the Celestial God estate and didn't go out. They didn't expect him to appear this time. "So it's Steward Silo. May I know why you've come to the Aemon clan?" An indifferent voice sounded. An old man walked out. He was the most powerful elder in the Aemon clan. He was also the main instigator of this marriage. "I'm here to bring the goddess back to the Celestial God estate." Steward Silo looked at the old man and said, "The goddess has returned. She should be in charge of the Celestial God estate." "Lin is a member of the Aemon clan. How can I let you take her away?" The old man snorted. Steward Silo said, "The goddess has the bloodline of the Tower Battle God." Thorpe stared at Steward Silo and said coldly, "The Tower Battle God has been dead for God knows how many years. You old thing, you still dare to borrow his power? Impudent." Steward Siluo's eyes flashed with a sharp light. "Old bastard, if you can withstand 3 moves from me, then consider it my loss." Thorpe looked at Butler Siluo and said in a disdainful manner, "Lord Thorpe, please calm down. Leave this matter to me." The old man from the Aemon family turned his head to look at Siluo and said, But Lasiluo, the god of heaven, didn't like Lin in the first place. He never asked about her matters. Our Aemon family is also a prestigious family. How can we be ignored like this? From today onwards, Lin has nothing to do with the heavenly god estate. Hey, old man, aren't you too shameless? The god of heaven is just leaving, who knows when he will come back. You old thing, burning the bridge after crossing the river, aren't you afraid that the god of heaven will come back and destroy your place? The monk, who could no longer hold himself back, said with a mocking expression. The expression of the elder of the Aemon family changed. He immediately shouted, "What nonsense are you spouting, Baldy? When did this old man burn the bridge after crossing the river? I was just stating the truth. The Empyrean gods don't care about Lin but our Aemon clan does." The monk coldly said, "Old thing, you still dare to quibble in front of Lord Zung? Open your eyes wide and look. After deliberately offending the god of heaven, what kind of thing have you attached yourself to? A mere 15th place on the king rankings. His reputation is just as trashy as his ranking. You actually want to sacrifice a goddess to marry him? Are you out of your mind?" As soon as the monk's words fell, a chill pervaded the surroundings. Dense killing intent filled every corner. Clearly, the monk's words not only looked down on the Aemon family, but also on Thorpe. He even had the intention of belittling Thorpe. There were many godly kings in the divine world. Thorpe was able to guarantee his 15th place, so he was definitely not weak. However, in front of the monk, he was said to be worthless. "Are you here to cause trouble?" The elder of the Aemon family narrowed his eyes. Killing intent circulated in his eyes. Of course not. This time, it was Yi Qian who spoke. She said, "I'm here to bring Xinlin back." "Go back. Who are you?" The old man stared at Yi Qian. "I'm Yi Qian, Xinlin's elder sister. As her half-sister, I don't agree to this marriage." Yi Qian's voice reverberated in the surroundings. Cries of alarm sounded from all around. Clearly, the person who had come was a goddess. However, within the crowd, many people's expressions became extremely strange. It should be known that on this matter, everyone related to the Heavenly Tower battle god had chosen to remain silent. For example, Kai Meng, who had once been very close to Xinlin, did not appear this time. There were also other children of gods who clearly did not want to participate in this matter. Unexpectedly, Goddess Yi Qian actually came. Many people knew about Goddess Yi Qian. In the past, the Heavenly Tower battle god seemed to treat her exceptionally well. It was so good that it was not inferior to the second god's treatment of Ben Sen Lu. However, those who knew about this matter also knew that this goddess came from an ordinary background. She did not have any family power in the divine world, let alone the slightest bit of foundation. Under such circumstances, those children of gods with maternal families did not come. Unexpectedly, Goddess Yi Qian, who did not have anything, actually came. Xinlin raised her head to look at Yi Qian, who was hovering in the air. Her mind recalled the past, and her eyes were filled with guilt. At the same time, there was also endless warmth and emotions. The elder from the Aemon family said indifferently, "I was wondering who it was." So it is Goddess Yi Qian, who is publicly recognized as a lowly person in the divine world. You may have misunderstood one thing. Lin and you are both goddesses, but you must not call yourself elder sister. Our Aemon family cannot afford to lose face like this. With your status, you are not qualified to be related to us. Old man, don't flatter yourself. In order to curry favor with Thorpe, you did not even care about your face. How can you be related to us? Let me tell you, we only brought Xinlin here. She has nothing to do with you, old thing. Also, Xinlin is not a member of your Aemon family. She is a goddess. The monk disdainfully glanced at the elder, then turned to look at Xinlin and said, "Goddess Xinlin, we have come to bring you back to the divine world. Do you have a reason? If you are willing, then nod your head." Xinlin naturally would not refuse. She nodded and said, "I am willing to return to the divine world." The elder from the Aemon family coldly snorted and said, "Lin you better think it through." "I have already thought it through. I am the daughter of a god. I have nothing to do with the Aemon family," Xinlin said. Thorpe, who was standing beside Shinlin, did not say anything. He only put on a look of watching a play, as if he was really willing to be a spectator. Lin, you better think it through. The Amon family raised you and nurtured you with all their heart. If you insist on leaving, not only will we be sad, but your friend will also be sad. The elder coldly said. Are you talking about me as a friend? I don't think I will be sad. I will only be happy for her. The voice that belonged to Ji Wei came from behind. He was walking together with the devil ape. His previously weak aura had already recovered. Damn it. You dare to cause trouble in the Amon family? Kill them. Seeing Ji Wei being rescued, the elder from the Amon family finally gave up his pretense and angrily shouted. As his voice fell, one god king after another soared into the sky. You are courting death. The devil ape's figure flashed, and the black rod in his hand smashed down. With a loud bang, a god king was smashed down from the sky by the rod. The earth rumbled, the floor shattered, and dust flew up. Chapter 3166. The devil ape killed a level 7 divine king with a single strike. Such battle prowess was shocking. On the other side, Tyrant laughed loudly as he charged forward with the demon subduing pestle. Buddhist light circled around his body like a sun, releasing a gentle light that made everyone feel peaceful as if they had arrived at a pure land. However, this was obviously an illusion. This peaceful light contained a strong killing intent. Wherever it passed, divine kings were killed. Swoosh. Beside Zi Chen, Zhong Haotian's figure flashed and disappeared from his original spot. When he reappeared, he was beside a level 7 divine king. With a flash of black light, his figure disappeared again. That level 7 divine king's body froze in mid-air. In the next moment, he fell to the ground, his vitality gone. Other than Zi Chen, Yi Chen, and butler Siluo, all the people that Zi Chen brought with him attacked. In the eyes of the crowd, these people were all level 7 divine kings, but their battle prowess was terrifyingly strong. They could easily kill those of the same level. As soon as the battle started, the divine kings of the Amon family died one after another. Such a strong battle prowess caused everyone's expression to change drastically. Disbelief was written all over their faces. Both parties were obviously at the same level, but the difference in battle prowess was too great. In the blink of an eye, those divine kings that had charged forward had all turned into corpses. Damn it. Attack with all your might. That elder was clearly enraged. His expression became extremely crazy as he shouted loudly. Wave after wave of powerful auras came from afar. Among them, there was no lack of level 8 experts. There were even level 9 experts. The Amon family was an old family. Naturally, there were level 9 divine kings in the family. These level 8 experts had joined the battle. One of them met the devil ape, and the devil ape smashed down with his staff. Boom! Energy vibrated, and the space distorted violently as if it could shatter at any time. The devil ape's figure swayed. In front of him, the level 8 divine king coughed out blood and was sent flying. One strike was enough to determine the victor. Such a scene was even more shocking. Even Thorpe, who had been watching the show, had a grave expression at this moment. Although he didn't think much of these 7th grade experts, he didn't have such powerful combat strength when he was in this realm. Zi Chen, who hadn't moved until now, took a step forward and released his aura of a grade 8 martial artist. He coldly said, "All unrelated people, leave. Otherwise, we will treat you as members of the Amon family and the Thorpe family." Feeling the oppressive aura coming from the air, many people's faces changed drastically, and they retreated one after another. It was obvious that Zi Chen was the leader of the group. If his subordinates were so strong, wouldn't the leader be even stronger? The people who came to watch the ceremony began to retreat. The aura released by Zi Chen's body made them feel more and more oppressed. A level 9 fighter flew into the air and launched an attack at the demonic ape. Zi Chen took a step forward, and his figure disappeared. In the next moment, he arrived in front of this level 9 and unsheathed the long saber in his hand. Whoosh! A gleaming saber arc streaked across the sky, heading straight into the distance. When the saber arc swept past the level 9 fighter's body, this menacing level 9 fighter's body froze. Before the saber arc disappeared, Zichen's figure had already disappeared from the level 9 fighter's sight and appeared beside Tyrant. Then, another saber arc appeared and swept past the level 9 fighter's body in front of him. Zichen's speed was as fast as teleportation. He appeared in 4 places one after another, and 4 saber arcs appeared in those 4 places. As the saber arcs disappeared, Zichen reappeared in his original spot. The 4 level 9 fighters from the Aemon family stopped in mid-air, and the terrifying aura surging from their bodies dissipated in an instant. Thud, thud, thud. The 4 level 9 fighters fell to the ground, dead. Cries of alarm rose from the surroundings again. The crowd that had already retreated far away retreated once more in fear. A level 9 divine king was already a pinnacle existence in this world. Who would have thought that they would be slaughtered so easily? The expressions of all the members of the Aemon family changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with deep fear. It had only been a short while since the start of the battle, but they had already lost 4 level 9 fighters, several level 8 fighters, and more than a dozen level 7 fighters. Even the Aemon family could not bear such a loss. It should be known that they were nurtured members of the divine clan, not war machines of the foreign tribes. Thorpe, who had been very calm all this time, could no longer maintain his composure. When he looked at Zichen again, his eyes were filled with deep fear. Rocker, who was saved by the devil ape, smiled bitterly. The difference in combat strength between him and Zichen was no longer just a little bit. The battle ended quickly. All the divine kings that had rushed forward were turned into corpses. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Tyrant and the others retreated to Zichen's side. The powerful aura surging from their bodies made the surroundings extremely oppressive. The surroundings were completely silent. However, this silence was quickly broken by Zichen. We want to bring Goddess Shinlin back to the Sky God residence. Zichen's sharp gaze swept across the crowd and landed on the elder. Do you have any objections? You've gone too far. The elder's face was filled with anger. Zichen's expression turned cold as he said, although I look down on your Aemon family, I don't mind exterminating this family if you insist on being so obstinate. When these words came out, the crowd fell silent again. Even the sound of breathing seemed to have stopped. My Aemon family has been established for tens of thousands of years. We have countless level 9 fighters. Why would we be afraid of your threats? The elder said coldly. Today, let me see how you will exterminate my Aemon family. When Zichen heard this, a disdainful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Oh, countless level 9 fighters? Where are they? Do you dare show me?" The level 9 fighters that had arrived earlier had been slaughtered by Zichen in an instant. Currently, no other level 9 fighters had appeared in the Aemon family. In the face of such a massacre, the level 9 fighters that had arrived first would definitely die. Therefore, no level 9 fighters had arrived yet. However, the Aemon family clearly did not show any fear. Many more god kings arrived in the distance. Killing intent flashed in their eyes as they approached. Sensing the dense killing intent, Zichen's expression became even more disdainful. He raised his head to look at the sky and said, "Lightning, descend." His voice was not loud, but it was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. The originally clear sky became extremely bright at this moment. Soon, it became blinding. When everyone saw what the light was, they all cried out in alarm. Whoosh, whoosh. When these rays of light fell, each one of them corresponded to a god king. When the rays of light struck these god kings, a deafening boom rang out. Chapter 3167. The rampaging lightning gradually stopped rumbling, and the sea of lightning slowly dispersed. The god kings from the Aemon clan that had approached Zichen with surging killing intent had all turned into corpses at this moment. Black smoke rose from their corpses, and some of them had even crystallized from time to time. The surroundings became deathly silent once more. Over 100 god kings had died when Zichen said those 2 words. The expression of the old man in charge of the Aemon clan changed again and again. The deaths of so many god kings in the clan made his heart bleed. This was a great loss. This was because they were all his direct subordinates. At the same time, his eyes were filled with deep fear. When he raised his head to look at Zi Chen, his body could not help but tremble. You. The old man extended his finger as if he wanted to say something. At this moment, a cold voice rang out, "Enough." A middle-aged man walked over from afar. He glanced at the corpses on the ground, and his face became extremely gloomy. "Patriarch, this person has come to our Amen clan to cause trouble. Please send out strong troops to immediately kill this traitor," the elder of the Amen clan said to the middle-aged man who had just arrived. The middle-aged man raised his head to look at Zi Chen and said, "What do you say? Either fight or retreat. Choose one," Zi Chen said coldly. The middle-aged man frowned and said unhappily, "You are too presumptuous. Today is a joyous occasion for our Amen clan. If you have come to congratulate us, we will naturally welcome you. Otherwise," before he could finish, he was interrupted by Zi Chen, "We do not agree to this marriage. I want to take the goddess back to the celestial god estate." "You want to stop me?" The middle-aged man said, "Marriage is a matter of mutual consent. No one can forcefully interfere." Surprise flashed through Zi Chen's eyes when he heard the middle-aged man's words. The moment the patriarch arrived, he had refocused the conflict on the matter of Xinlin's marriage with just a few words. Moreover, his attitude seemed rather thought-provoking. "Xinlin, come with me," Yi Qian said at this moment. The middle-aged man looked at Xinlin, who was wearing a rainbow-colored feather dress, and said, "Lin are you really unwilling?" Xinlin glanced at the patriarch. She gently bit her red lips and shook her head. Sigh. The middle-aged man couldn't help but let out a low sigh, his eyes filled with regret. "I originally thought that you and Thorpe were a perfect match for a beautiful woman, but I didn't expect it to be like this. Forget it. Since this is your choice, we can't force you." His words caused an uproar. Not far away, the face of the elder from the Amen family turned extremely gloomy, and there was even a trace of resentment in his eyes as he looked at the middle-aged man. "Patriarch, what is the meaning of this?" This matter had already been agreed upon by the family. If they were to go back on their word now, what would happen to the Eden family? "You are the head of the family. Shouldn't you protect the dignity of the family?" the old man said unhappily. The middle-aged man looked around and said in a deep voice, "The face of the Amen family is naturally important, but how can we forcefully interfere? Since Lin is unwilling, we naturally have to comply with her wishes. Even though the god realm is currently in chaos, our Amorn family has been around for a very long time and has a very deep foundation. We still don't need a child to be sacrifice." These words were so impassioned that the eyes of many experts from the Amen family in the distance lit up. They had long heard of what kind of person Thorpe was. If Xinlin were to marry him, she would naturally not have an easy time. Furthermore, Xinlin was a goddess. Even if the heavenly god wasn't present, she was still a goddess. This marriage would damage the reputation of the Amen family. However, they could only follow the orders of the upper echelons. Today, the words of the patriarch had spoken out their thoughts. Although Thorpe was powerful, the Amen family would definitely not show weakness. Even if Thorpe was an expert on the king ranking, he would still be killed by many 9th rank expert. Hearing these words, Zi Chen seemed to have faintly understood something. It was at this time that he heard the voice of the housekeeper beside him. "Young master, my source of information came from the Amen family. The housekeeper stayed in the heavenly god residence and didn't come out. Naturally, he didn't pay attention to the outside world. How could he know what was happening in the distant Amen family? Furthermore, Xinlin hadn't been back for long. The housekeeper might not know." Glancing at the patriarch, Zi Chen's expression didn't change. However, he had already faintly understood the other party's intentions. "Ridiculous." The elder snorted and said, "Thorpe and Lin are a hero and a beauty. In the future, they will definitely become a good story in the god realm. What sacrifice?" Furthermore. However, before the elder could finish speaking, the monk, who had already lost his patience, said, "What did you say? Hero? Who's the hero, this trash?" The monk's gaze fell on Thorpe. He said disdainfully, "A mere 15th on the king ranking dares to call himself a hero? Then what do you think of this Lord Zeng?" When the surrounding people heard this, they were all stunned. They secretly guessed that this person was an existence even higher on the king ranking. However, they immediately shook their heads. This person was merely a 7th rank. How could he be on the king ranking? However, at this moment, everyone's attention was on Thorpe and the monk. After that, no one paid attention to the Aemon family. This allowed the patriarch of the Aemon family to breathe a sigh of relief. Seeing that the Aemon family had decided to stay out of the matter, Thorpe coldly smiled. He looked at the monk and said, "Are you courting death?" As his voice fell, the monk sensed a cold killing intent from the other party's eyes. The killing intent materialized and stabbed towards him like 2 sharp blades. The monk knew that things weren't looking good. However, he didn't show it on his face. A pure golden light enveloped his body. He used his world energy to isolate the killing intent. Although he knew the difference between the two of them, the monk didn't admit defeat. "Trash, a mere 15th on the king ranking dares to challenge your Lord Zeng?" At this moment, Chen stepped forward and stood in front of the monk, isolating him from the killing intent. The killing intent disappeared and the golden light in front of the monk disappeared. His face was slightly pale. This king-ranking powerhouse was indeed not to be underestimated. Chen met Thorpe's gaze and didn't back down. He said indifferently, "I don't care what kind of hobbies you have. I don't care how twisted your mentality is. Since you dared to provoke Goddess Xinlin, I will not let you off today. Just because you're at the 8th rank." Thorpe felt disdain in his heart. "You'll know if you try." After saying that, Chen's figure disappeared from where he was and appeared beside Thorpe as if he had teleported. "You're not slow, but it's useless against me." Thorpe smiled coldly. He turned around and threw out a punch. Fist radiance shone and illuminated the surroundings. In front of him, there was also a fist radiance that was filled with powerful thunder body energy. Boom! The two attacks collided and a powerful shockwave spread out in all directions. All the buildings within a radius of 100 feet shook and turned into dust. Chen retreated to a distance of 100 feet. Behind him, Xinlin's pretty face was full of fear. If Chen hadn't protected her and retreated, she would have died in the aftermath of the previous attack. Yi Qian flew over and pulled Xinlin back quickly. "Your strength is only SOSO." Chen smiled faintly and continued to rush forward. He teleported and threw out a powerful punch. However, this punch was much stronger than before. When the punch was thrown out, lightning flashed and a powerful force surged out, causing the surrounding space to distort intensely. Thunder explosion. Chapter 3168. Thorpe sensed a strong sense of danger from the punch. His expression changed drastically, and he no longer dared to underestimate it. He threw out a punch of his own. The punch seemed to have turned into a 7-colored mountain peak. It was so tall that its peak could not be seen. It carried a heavy and oppressive aura as it met the thunderblast punch. As the two clashed, an even stronger shockwave rippled out. Chen and Thorpe both retreated. The two of them were actually evenly matched. Everyone in the surroundings widened their eyes in disbelief. After all, Chen was only at level 8. He was actually able to fight against Thorpe, who was at level 9 and ranked 15th on the king rankings. Did this not mean that he already had the strength to be ranked on the king rankings? If he was already so powerful at level 8, what would happen once he reached level 9? Unlike everyone else, Chen was extremely dissatisfied with this. He was not an ordinary level 8. He was a level 8 who had reawakened the power of laws. His current battle with Thorpe should not have ended up like this. He immediately stopped holding back. Energy surged from his body, and the power of laws that defied the natural order surged. He was surrounded by a 3-colored radiance as he threw out another punch. This time, it was still a thunderblast, but it contained the power of yin and yang. The moment he used his full strength, the surrounding space collapsed, turning into a huge black hole. Chen traveled through the black hole. Just the energy aura that was released was enough to shatter this space on its own. This caused everyone to be incomparably shocked. They immediately discovered that they did not feel any pressure from Chen's terrifying might. This made them extremely puzzled. Opposite Chen, Thorpe's perception of danger had reached its limit. He roared and a long saber appeared in his hand. He slashed down at Zi Chen's head. This slash was extremely powerful. Wherever it passed, a black saber mark appeared in the void. Thorpe had clearly displayed the means that an expert on the king rankings should have. Boom! The two attacks collided again, and a powerful force rippled out. Thorpe felt a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas enter his body, constantly attacking his internal organs. Even his soul suffered a significant impact. His full-strength attack was instantly drowned out. The next moment, he could no longer control the surging energy. He coughed up blood and was sent flying. Under the watchful eyes of the people outside, the void within a radius of 1,000 feet shattered like a mirror, turning into a huge black hole. Within the black hole, there was nothing that could be destroyed. Outside of the black hole, everything was undamaged. It was as if there was an invisible force that enveloped an area of 1,000 feet. Not only did it block the terrifying energy shockwaves, it also blocked all the pressure from the battle. However, the result of this exchange exceeded everyone's expectations. Thorpe, who was ranked 15th on the king ranking, was actually coughing up blood. It was obvious that he had been defeated by that level 8 martialist. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded, as if they were seeing an illusion. If it weren't for the fact that the two of them were really in a life-and-death battle, other people would definitely think that Thorpe was cooperating with Zi Chen, who was a level 8 expert. Otherwise, how could the 15th strongest person in the celestial realm be defeated by the 8th grade Zi Chen in one move? Thorpe was already powerful enough. The black hole that appeared in the surroundings and the turbulent flows were unable to do anything to him. He wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, stared at Zi Chen, and said coldly, "Damn it, I actually underestimated you. But now, you're going to die." As soon as he finished speaking, Thorpe's aura instantly changed. His eyes became incomparably cold. Divine light curled around his body as if it was burning, turning into raging flames. In the next moment, a huge beast with 9 heads materialized from divine power. The huge beast seemed to be real. Its 18 eyes coldly stared at Zi Chen, causing Zi Chen to feel a chill. At this moment, the space seemed to have changed. A great force faintly sealed off the area. The huge beast had yet to use any powerful techniques, but it was already so powerful. It was clearly extraordinary. Zi Chen's expression was slightly dignified, but he did not care too much. Although there was a difference in level between him and Thorpe, the biggest difference between the two of them was their absolute power. With awakened power, even if Zi Chen was an 8th grade, he still did not care about a mere 9th grade, even if he was a powerhouse on the king's list. This could be seen on Heaven's Road in the celestial realm. In the absence of awakened power, it was often the 3rd grade who could barely fight against the indigenous people of Wang Yiping. The long saber appeared in his hand. All the seals on the 9 Extremes weapon had been unlocked, and the 9 pieces of the Saber Ancestors tablet had been gathered. Its power had reached its peak, and the only thing it lacked was comprehension. He rushed forward and slashed with the saber. The saber light like a waterfall cut down, cutting a huge crack in the world. The 9 giant beasts roared into the sky, and the space that had just healed began to crumble. A strange power locked onto Zi Chen, and then the 9 giant beasts opened their mouths together, and a straight beam of light shot out from their mouths, with a mighty aura. The power that sealed off the space disappeared in an instant when it met the saber. At the same time, the saber did not lose its momentum and fell on the 9-headed beast. One head was cut down. The 9-headed beast let out a painful cry, and the rest of its attack went straight to Zi Chen, instantly piercing through Zi Chen's body. Zi Chen's body disappeared into thin air, turning into fragments like a broken mirror. How is this possible? Seeing Zi Chen disappear, Thorpe's expression changed again. His means were extremely clever, and he had a strong sealing power. Even a powerhouse on the king's list would be greatly affected here, and it would be even more impossible to get rid of it. However, the other party had easily gotten rid of this suppression, and the power of his counterattack was terrifying. Just as Thorpe was shocked, Zi Chen continued to attack, slashing down again and again. Arcs appeared in the sky, and each arc contained an extremely powerful attack power. Wherever the arcs passed, the heads of the 9 beasts were cut off one by one. As for the straight beams of light, they could not hurt Zi Chen at all. After several consecutive slashes, a loud bang was heard, and the 9 beasts were defeated. Thorpe's expression became increasingly cold, and he stared at Zi Chen, who was in front of him. After destroying the 9-headed beast, Zi Chen's aura was still very strong, and he looked at Thorpe indifferently. Die. As soon as the cold words came out, Zi Chen rushed forward, unsheathing his saber again. He slashed down forcefully. The light of the saber exuded a heavy aura, and 7 saber wills lingered on the blade. An even stronger spatial seal appeared, and Thorpe felt that his movements were being affected. He shouted and clenched his fists. Divine light lingered in front of him, forming a huge light shield. Ancient runes flowed on the light shield. The blade fell, and there was another boom, and Thorpe's body flew backward. Chapter 3169. Thorpe's defense wasn't low, and there weren't many people in the god realm who could force him to defend himself. However, not only did he put up a defense, it was his strongest defense, but it was still broken through by Zi Chen. Outside the battlefield, everyone's faces were filled with shock as they looked at Thorpe, who was coughing up blood. Zi Chen's strength at the 8th level far exceeded the common sense of the god realm. How could he be a nobody when he was so strong? However, there was no such person in the entire god realm. The elder of the Aemon family had an ugly expression. He had placed all his hopes on Thorpe, and had even sacrificed some of his direct descendants. Who would have thought that Thorpe would be so useless that he couldn't even take down a mere 8th level? He really doubted how Thorpe's reputation on the king ranking came about. He glanced at the indifferent patriarch of the Aemon family, and his expression grew even darker. This time, they had the highest authority to deal with Xinlian's matter, and even the patriarch was excluded from the meeting. If they failed, then his prestige in the family would drop to the lowest level. When he thought of losing all his authority in the future, his mood became even more irritable. He couldn't understand. Even the other children of gods didn't dare to intervene in this matter, so what right did these hotheads, who had no power or influence in the god realm, have to intervene? Compared to the irritable patriarch, the Aemon family's patriarch had a calm expression, and his originally tense heart had completely relaxed. Looking at the current situation, there was no need for them to risk their lives. Cries of surprise rang out from the quiet surroundings. A 7-colored bloody light had appeared on the battlefield. Thorpe, who was ranked 15th on the king ranking, had one of his arms cut off. Zi Chen stood with his blade in hand, like a god of death. He stood indifferently in front of Thorpe, looking down at the extremely miserable Thorpe. In terms of absolute power, Thorpe was firmly suppressed. Even if he used several powerful battle techniques, he was still cut apart by Zi Chen's long blade. No matter how powerful your techniques are, I only have one blade. This blade could cut through everything in the world. Feeling the oppressive aura coming from the other side, Thorpe's face was extremely ugly. He was a mighty warrior on the king's list, but he was defeated just like that. He was extremely unwilling to accept this. At this moment, he saw Zi Chen move. An indescribable sense of danger surfaced in his heart. He was frightened and shouted, "Don't kill me, I'm willing to follow you into battle." These words caused an uproar. Who would have thought that the powerful Thorpe would actually lower his stance and choose to submit? The blade stopped in front of Thorpe. Zi Chen held the long blade in his hand and stared coldly at Thorpe. "Don't kill me, I'm willing to follow you everywhere," Thorpe said again, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. This result was out of everyone's expectations. Patriarch Aemon turned around and swept a glance at the Great Elder, a trace of ridicule flashing in his eyes. The First Elder was dumbfounded. He had never thought that things would turn out this way. But in his heart, he was also secretly happy. As long as Thorpe didn't die, with just a little bit of affection, his prestige would remain. If others wanted to weaken his authority in the family, it would be impossible. At this moment, Zi Chen's cold voice sounded out. After hearing these words, the elder felt as if he had fallen into an icy lake. "What use do I have for a subordinate with such a twisted and perverted heart like you?" Thorpe looked up at Zi Chen's words, his face filled with disbelief. He was in existence ranked 15th on the king's list. He had surrendered on his own initiative, and yet this person didn't care for him? What did you say? Thorpe asked, as if he were hallucinating. You have one chance to attack, Zichen said, his voice as cold as ever. I am ranked 15th on the king's list, and yet a damned fellow like you dares to look down on me? Thorpe's voice became much sharper. The fear in his eyes had turned into madness. A person like you shouldn't be allowed to live in this world. What use do I have for you? Zichen sneered as a powerful aura erupted from his body. Good. You want me to die, right? I'll take you down with me. Thorpe's eyes became extremely venomous as he shouted, 1,000 snakes devour the soul. As soon as his voice fell, his body exploded with a bang, turning into countless rays of divine light. These rays of divine light contained the power of Thorpe's flesh and blood. They seemed to have turned into small snakes, trying to devour Zichen. Oh no! Outside the battlefield, when Yichen and the others saw this scene, their faces immediately changed. Zichen stood there without moving. A strange power had locked onto him. At this moment, he couldn't even draw his sword. The small snakes were extremely fast. They surrounded him in an instant, and then rushed into his body. Some entered his body, while others went straight to his soul. In the blink of an eye, Zichen was surrounded by countless small snakes, and he couldn't see anything else. Such a scene made everyone's faces change drastically. Clearly, this was the strength of an expert on the king's list. Yi Qian exclaimed and was about to rush to the battlefield. Whoosh! Zhong Haotian's figure flashed and stopped Yi Qian. He said, "Don't worry. Zichen won't be in trouble so easily." Yi Qian was worried. The aftermath of the previous battle could only be maintained in a very small direction. Clearly, it was because Zichen had opened his world. Under such circumstances, no one could kill Zichen except for the gods. After Yi Qian calmed down, she noticed this point. However, at this moment, Zichen was still surrounded by many small snakes. She was very worried. Right at this moment, a series of mournful screams suddenly rang out from the battlefield. The scream didn't belong to Zichen. It was Thorpe's voice, sharp and full of fear. The small snakes that were entangled around Zichen revealed a look of fear in their eyes. They wanted to escape. At this moment, flames appeared on Zichen's body. The flames were surrounded by the power of thunder. It was the thunder fire that was activated by the thunder body. The temperature of the thunder fire was extremely terrifying. The moment it appeared, it ignited the small snakes around it. The small snakes' bodies constantly twisted, burning into nothingness in a moment. The small snakes burned with flames and flew in all directions. They seemed to be running aimlessly, but when they reached the edge of the battlefield, they were knocked back by a strange power. Shrill screams continuously rang out. The flames continued to burn and distort. All the small snakes disappeared. Not a single one was left. The small snakes disappeared, and so did Thorpe's voice. He was dead. Not even a corpse was left behind. The surroundings became quiet once again. Everyone was extremely shocked. A powerful expert on the king ranking had actually died before their eyes just like that. The battle was over. The space that sealed the battlefield disappeared. Zichen turned around and looked down at the Grand Elder. He said, "Now, what do you say? Lord Zichen, please don't worry. The Aemon family will definitely give you an explanation. Men, capture all the Thorpe family members and the Great Elder." The Grand Elder's expression was gloomy and ugly. The head of the Aemon family stepped forward. The many god kings behind him nodded and stepped forward. Chapter 3170. Impudent. Who dares to capture me? The Aemon clan's Grand Elder bellowed as he saw the approaching god kings, instantly releasing his rank 9 aura. A powerful aura surged, forming a powerful ripple that forced the charging god kings back. Grand Elder, don't be so obstinate, the patriarch of the Aemon clan coldly said. I'm obstinate. Do you know how long I've worked for today? How much effort have I put in so that the clan can prosper in this great turmoil and never decline? The Great Elder's face became distorted. All my efforts have turned into nothing today. How will the family survive the great turmoil in the future? The patriarch of the Aemon clan indifferently said, Grand Elder, I see that you don't care about the clan, but your own status and position in the clan? Nonsense. The Grand Elder angrily said. Nonsense or not, you know very well. The patriarch of the Aemon clan said, actually, what's the point? You're the Grand Elder of the Aemon clan. Even my authority as the patriarch is inferior to yours, so why do you have to do this? However, today's matter was ultimately caused by you. The clan has suffered great losses, so you must account for them. Capture him. The patriarch of the Aemon clan finally sighed. Let's see who dares to move. The Grand Elder's divine power surged as a powerful aura circulated. He was a rank 9, and the strongest present was only rank 8. Naturally, they could not do anything to him. He swept his gaze around, wanting to find others in the crowd, but he discovered that those who had conspired with him were nowhere to be found. He immediately flew into a rage and was about to curse. At this moment, the Grand Elder suddenly felt something strange beside him. Turning his head, he saw a blade glow descending from the sky. As the blade glow descended, an extremely powerful pressure fell on his body. He felt as if he had sunk into a quagmire, unable to move. This was an attack from Zi Chen. Recalling the scene of Thorpe's death, the Grand Elder paled, his eyes filled with fear, as if he was about to beg for mercy. As the blade glow passed, the Grand Elder's divine light barrier was cut open, and his body was cleaved in two, his vitality completely drained away. All the schemes and conflicts of interest came to an end at this moment. Let's go. Zi Chen walked towards the group. The few of them nodded. Xin Lin glanced at the patriarch, who nodded slightly at her. Xin Lin turned around and left. Shua. The space in front broke open, and a group of people entered the space. Wait. A voice rang out from behind. It was Ben Senlu, Xavier, and Sina flying into the air. At this moment, no one in their family stopped the three of them. After witnessing Zi Chen's strength, they naturally wanted to befriend Zi Chen. When they reappeared, they were already far away from the Aemon family. It seems that we have been used. After appearing, Butler Sai Luo said. Through the previous scene, he had already seen that the patriarch and the elders were not on good terms, and the person who spread the news was naturally on the patriarch's side. Judging from the previous situation, he probably wanted to use Zi Chen to completely suppress the great elder. You can't say that I was used. Zi Chen smiled faintly. He didn't care at all because his goal was to save people, and he had already saved them. At this moment, Xin Lin was saying something to Yi Qian. She kept crying, and Yi Qian was comforting her. Butler, are you really going to bring Goddess Xin Lin back to the Sky God estate? Zi Chen looked at Sai Luo and asked. The butler nodded and said, yes, but before that, I need to borrow your power. Oh, what is it? Zi Chen asked. Right now, Kai Meng is in the Sky God estate. I hope you can chase him away. The butler said. Chase him away? Kai Meng is also the son of God. He should have the right to live in the Sky God estate, right? Zi Chen was a bit hesitant. The butler said with a serious expression, the Sky God estate doesn't represent a city. It also represents a faction. It is the Sky God's own faction, called the Sky God Army. It is an absolute elite army. Oh! Zi Chen's expression changed when he heard this. The others were also very surprised. Before the Sky God left, he left behind the Sky God Army. This army is made up of God Kings. It is the result of the Sky God's many years of hard work. Butler Sai Luo said, back then, the Sky God said that the army could be split into two. Yi Qian and Xin Lin would each have half, but what? Zi Chen asked. At this moment, Xin Lin and Yi Qian also walked over. They also didn't know that the Sky God had the Sky God Army. However, before the Sky God left, he said that if Goddess Yi Qian was strong enough, the Sky God Army would be left to Goddess Xin Lin. Actually, before he left, he also meant to leave the army to Goddess Xin Lin. Butler Sai Luo said, at first, I didn't understand. According to the Sky God's love for Goddess Yi Qian, it shouldn't be like this. However, after seeing what happened today, I vaguely understand the Sky God's intentions. Perhaps before the Sky God left, he had already predicted what would happen today. The Aemon family and the Sky God were connected by marriage. The sky god must have known about the Aemon family's situation. He guessed that after he left, the Aemon family might be connected by marriage to another faction. This person might very well be Shinlin. That was why he left the sky god army to Shinlin. This way, she would be able to protect herself in the face of danger. At the same time, with the sky god army, she would have the right to choose. As for Yi Qian, the sky god clearly knew that she was with Zi Chen. He also knew that Zi Chen had some powerful methods. If that's the case, why didn't the butler give the sky god army to goddess Shinlin earlier? Zi Chen asked in confusion. The butler shook his head and said, the sky god army is very important. At the time, goddess was too weak. Before I could remind goddess had already entered the god king heavenly domain. This wasn't part of the sky god's plan. The sky god army can only be mobilized by the son of the sky god. Otherwise, I would have taken the sky god army to save people. Right now, Kai Meng is in the sky god estate. He should have heard something and wants to steal the sky god army. After all, as long as the sky god army has the bloodline of the tower battle sky god, they can control it. Shinlin heard this and was very moved. She didn't think that her sky god father, who never paid much attention to her, would leave the most important sky god army to her. After hearing the butler's words, Ben Senlu and the other son of the sky god's eyes flashed. The tower battle sky god, as the ninth sky god, had his own sky god army. His father must also have one. Just where was that sky god army? Since that's the case, let's take a trip to the sky god estate. Next, the butler told them the coordinates. Heavenbreaker tore through space again and again, and the group headed toward the former core of the ninth domain. Walking out of the tunnel, they arrived outside Sky God City. At this time, Sky God City's protective array had already been activated. Many members of the god race stood on the city walls, their gazes like cold lightning. Who goes there? Zi Chen's group attracted the attention of the guards as soon as they appeared. Halt. Chapter 3171. On the city wall, all the god kings stared at Zi Chen's group with obvious hostility. Zi Chen furrowed his brows slightly as he looked at the activated city's grand array. How could this be? Butler Siluo was stunned. He stepped forward and asked, why are the city gates closed? Who do you think you are? How dare you interfere with our business? A god king on the city wall shouted, leave quickly or die. I am the butler of the divine manor. The divine manor has left, so I am temporarily in charge of this city. Where is God King Yabu? I want to see him. The butler's voice became very unyielding. Butler of the divine manor? Never heard of it. This city is now under the jurisdiction of the divine sun. All of you, leave quickly. The god king on the city wall shouted again. The divine sun you are talking about, is it Kai Meng? Zi Chen asked in a low voice. Impudent. Divine Son Kai Meng is not someone you can call by his name. The God King's eyes were filled with killing intent. Leave quickly or die. We have to go take a look at the city, the butler said worriedly. Zi Chen nodded and turned to look at Heavenbreaker. Heavenbreaker's horn glowed, and he easily opened a path. The group walked into the path. When they walked out of the path, they had already arrived at the city. Let's go to the divine manor, Butler Siluo said. At this moment, the group was floating in the air. They were very conspicuous in the city. The city guards patrolling the city saw them and immediately sounded the alarm. In a short while, city guards appeared one by one, filled with killing intent. Most of these guards were divine generals. Even the occasional god king was not of a high level. After they appeared, they surrounded Zi Chen's group but did not attack immediately. What is the meaning of this? Butler Siluo stared at these guards. He was familiar with some of them but could not remember their names. These guards did not say a word. They surrounded them but did not attack. Many of them avoided the butler's gaze. We are under the orders of the divine sun to protect this city. We will kill all who trespass without mercy. The god king who was guarding the city wall appeared again. He was a level 7 god king and was flying over with several level 6 god kings. How dare you trespass into Heavenly God City to cause trouble? The level 7 expert glanced at the guards around him and said coldly, What are you waiting for? Hurry up and take down these troublemakers. These guards held their weapons with both hands, their eyes filled with hesitation and struggle. They knew the butler. A few days ago, the butler still had the final say in this city. Are you stupid? How dare you attack us? The monk stared at the level 7 and said, Go and ask Kamen to come out. Let's see if he has the guts to attack us. You're courting death. There was a flash of anger in the eyes of the grade 7 powerhouse as he shouted at the hesitant guards, Why aren't you making a move? Are you disobeying my orders? The guards gritted their teeth and were about to attack. The leading 2nd grade Divine King said, Housekeeper, I'm sorry. However, before he could finish, Zichen nodded at Zhong Haotian, who was standing beside him. Zhong Haotian's figure flickered, disappearing from where he stood. With a soft pop, the nearby level 7 Divine King's chest was pierced by a sharp blade. Blood gushed out from the wound. This level 7 Divine King, who had been cold and stern before, was now clutching his wound, his face filled with shock. He didn't even see where the enemy was, but there was a bloody hole in his body. This bloody hole was like an abyss that began to devour his life force. His life force was gone in an instant. His body fell down and crashed into a building. A ray of light appeared on the surface of the building, and then the corpse was knocked away. Behind this dead level 7 stood several level 6 Divine Kings. When they saw this scene, their expressions changed. One of them shouted, You dare to attack in the city? Men, they have violated Heavenly God City's rules. Kill them. As he shouted, this level 6 Divine King didn't move forward. Instead, he retreated at an extremely fast speed. However, no matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than Zhong Haotian. Seeing this level 6 Divine King retreat, Zichen's eyes flashed with ridicule. Pop! In the end, that level 6 Divine King wasn't faster than Zhong Haotian. With a flash of black light, a soft pop was heard. The level 6 Divine King's strength was rapidly draining away. His vision turned black, and he fell to the ground. Although he was already dead, his previous words were like a drop of water in a pot of boiling oil. It caused a huge commotion. Killing intent surged from all directions. Troops appeared one after another. They formed a military formation. Their auras were like one. They appeared from all directions and surrounded Zichen's group. It's the Celestial Guards. Looking at these immortal generals in armor and weapons, Steward Sai Luo's face turned unsightly. The Celestial Guards were the most elite troops in Heavenly God City. They were responsible for protecting the safety of Heavenly God City. The Celestial Guards were also the first to be recruited into the Celestial Guards. They were the true elites. Seeing the killing intent in these Celestial Guards' eyes, the butler knew that something was wrong. He shouted, "YABU, what are you doing?" No one responded to Butler Sai Luo. The killing intent in the entire city grew even stronger. "Young master, these are the Celestial Guards. Every one of them is an existence that doesn't fear death. Once they attack, without a military order, they won't retreat even if they have to kill every last one of them." Butler Sai Luo's expression was extremely ugly as he looked at the Celestial Guards around him. Butler Sai Luo had some understanding of Zichen's battle strength. He knew that even if these Celestial Guards knew how to work together, they definitely wouldn't be a match for Zichen. If Zichen really wanted to kill, these Celestial Guards would definitely die. These Celestial Guards were the painstaking efforts of the Celestial Guards. Butler Sai Luo obviously didn't want these people to be slaughtered by Zichen. "YABU, do you know what you are doing? You will kill all of these Celestial Guards." Butler Sai Luo shouted bitterly. YABU was the person personally appointed by the Celestial Guard. He was once loyal and devoted to the Celestial Guard. Even though the Celestial Guard wasn't around, he was still loyal. He didn't have any thoughts of rebellion. He didn't expect that after he left, things would turn out like this. "We, the Celestial Guards, are not afraid of death." A cold voice rang out. A man wearing battle armor appeared. As the commander of the Celestial Guards in Heavenly God City, his cultivation level was naturally at the 9th level. Coupled with his special battle armor, even if he encountered experts on the king ranking, he would be able to put up a fight. He held a long spear tightly in his hand and pointed it at Zi Chen. He said coldly, "Killing is forbidden in Heavenly God City. Anyone who dares to kill in Heavenly God City will be executed according to the law." In an instant, the killing intent released by the celestial guards in the city seemed to condense on Commander Yabu's body. Then, it was released from the tip of the spear. Zi Chen felt his heart tighten. "Nonsense. Yabu, quickly put down your spear. This is young Master Zi Chen. Yi Chen and Goddess Xin Lin are also here. How can you attack them?" Butler Sai Luo said angrily. Chapter 3172. Commander Yabu's words were resounding and forceful. They spread throughout the entire city. When the heavenly god guards in the city heard this, their expressions turned solemn. Their killing intent intensified. Within the heavenly god estate, Kai Ma was seated in a large hall. This was the meeting room where the heavenly gods discussed matters. That seat was reserved only for heavenly gods. Below Kai Meng, there were two other people. They were both at the 9th rank, the strongest below the heavenly god realm. The three of them were aware of everything that had happened in Heavenly God City. Kai Ma chuckled. "It seems this guy is still somewhat useful. The fact that the heavenly god made him a commander is enough to prove that he's not ordinary. With the heavenly god guards around, it's impossible for them to enter the heavenly god estate." One of the 9th rank sneered. Kai Meng nodded and said, "If I remember correctly, my 7th sister is going to marry Thorpe today. Why is she here? Is it today?" The 9th rank who spoke first was startled. He clearly didn't remember the time. "It should be today," Kai Ma said. The other 9th rank who hadn't spoken yet glanced at Kai Ma's expression. If it's really today, then Goddess Xin Lin shouldn't have appeared here. Did something happen? Kai Ma frowned. "Is there any news from the other side?" The two 9th ranks shook their heads. They didn't even remember the date, so why would they care about news from the other side? Seeing the two shake their heads, Kai Ma said indifferently, "Forget it. It doesn't matter. With Yabu outside, I'm sure there won't be a problem. Inform Yabu to kill them directly. Remember, I don't care if the others are dead or alive. I want her alive." One of the 9th ranks nodded, turned, and left. Kai Ma sat in the seat of the heavenly god, but he couldn't feel happy. Zi Chen was among the people who'd come. Whenever he thought of Zi Chen, he couldn't help but feel irritated. This was because he'd never been able to gain the upper hand against Zi Chen. "Yabu, you're causing trouble. This is Heavenly God City, and they're the children of the Heavenly God. Coming here is like coming home." Steward Siluo shouted at Commander Yabu, "This is Heavenly God City. Heavenly God Manor is home. In my territory, rules are rules." Divine King Yabu said coldly. "The heavenly deity has already left. This place is now under my control. Get out of my way," the steward said unyieldingly, his expression extremely ugly. He didn't know what had gotten into Yabu. He had only been gone for a little over a month. Derision flashed through Commander Yabu's eyes. "Who do you think you are to command me? Everything I did was according to the will of the God of Heaven. If I break the rules, I will be punished. Goddesses are like that, and so are ordinary people." "Oh, so you're saying that you're following the rules?" Seeing that the steward was about to say something, Zi Chen stopped him and turned to Yabu. "That's right," Divine King Yabu said indifferently, "you have violated the rules. You should be punished." Zi Chen nodded and said, "All right, then let's talk about the rules. Since you are guarding the Heavenly God City, you should know that the Heavenly God Manor is the home of the Godchild." Divine King Yabu frowned and didn't reply, but everyone knew that there was nothing wrong with this statement. Zi Chen continued, "Then may I ask if there is a problem with the Godchild and Goddess returning home?" Divine King Yabu remained silent, his eyes surging with cold light. "Why are you silent? Do you not know how to answer? Then let me answer for you. It is only right and proper for the goddess to return home." Zi Chen stared at Yabu, his voice growing colder and colder. "Then why did you seal the city gates and prevent the goddess from returning to the Heavenly God Manor?" These words were abnormally cold, sweeping through the air like ice. The somber killing intent in the surroundings weakened somewhat. The heavenly God ordered you to guard the heavenly God city, but you gathered soldiers to seal the city and prevent the goddess from returning. What are your intentions? Do you want to take the heavenly God manna for yourself? Do you think that the heavenly God is gone and that you want to replace him? You keep saying that you are loyal to the heavenly God, but is this how you show your loyalty? Zichen's voice was like thunder, reverberating in everyone's sea of consciousness. The expressions of the celestial divine guards, who were originally filled with murderous intent, changed. They were celestial god guards and had to obey orders. This order naturally came from Yabu. But there was a prerequisite to all of this: loyalty to the heavenly God. Commander Yabu was purposely blocking the goddess from entering heavenly God city. This couldn't be justified. Yabu looked at Zichen and sneered. You're quite eloquent, but this sort of malicious framing isn't very clever. I'm just following Divine Son Kai Meng's orders. Why would I want to replace him? Zichen didn't get angry. Instead, he mocked. You just said that you were loyal to the heavenly God and that you would kill the goddess even if she violated the rules. Now you're saying that you're following Divine Son Kai Meng's orders? Let me ask, is Kai Meng's status higher than the two goddesses by my side? Or have you already broken your oath of loyalty to the heavenly God and sided with Kai Meng? Are you purposely targeting the two goddesses and even trying to kill them? What a load of nonsense. Yabu was enraged. His eyes flashed with cold light. I, Yabu, am completely loyal to the heavenly God. The heavens can be my witness. Zichen interrupted him and said mockingly, one moment you're loyal to the heavenly God, and the next moment you're following Kai Meng's orders. There are many contradictions between the two. However, I won't bicker with you because there's no point. I just want to tell you that instead of being the commander of Heavenly God City, you want to be Kai Meng's dog and tear apart the other goddesses. This is far too degrading for your status. You're the celestial god guards, created by the Heavenly God and directly under the Heavenly God's jurisdiction. What kind of honor is that? Instead of being a superior, why do you want to lead these loyal celestial god guards to be dogs? Impudent. Kill them. Commander Yabu was furious, his eyes surging with crazed killing intent. With the heavenly god medallion, I'd like to see who dares to move. The steward shouted. A medallion surrounded by divine light appeared in his hand, releasing the aura of a heavenly god. Seeing the heavenly god medallion is like seeing a heavenly god. The aura of a heavenly god spread out from the heavenly god medallion. All the celestial god guards paled and were about to bow. The heavenly god has already left. Who knows where you got the medallion? You violated the rules of Heavenly God City first and took out a fake medallion. If I don't take you down today, where will the dignity of the celestial god guards go? Commander Yabu snorted coldly and said, Men, get into formation and attack. Kill anyone who dares to resist. The celestial god guards, who had been surging with killing intent, paused. Many of them looked hesitant. You want to disobey? Yabu suddenly turned his head, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Chapter 3173. Zichen was the one who attacked. Commander Yabu was sent flying with a single punch. He flew about 1,000 feet away, his eyes cold as he shouted, All celestial guards, take formation and attack. The murderous celestial guards began to hesitate. After all, they were loyal to the celestial gods, not Commander Yabu. Now that the celestial order contained the celestial's aura had appeared, they should submit. This is the celestial order. Seeing it is like seeing the celestial gods. Yabu, are you rebelling? Butler Siluo shouted at Commander Yabu. Page, who knows if your order is fake? Celestial guards, attack. Those who disobey will be dealt with according to military law. Commander Yabu snorted coldly again, his voice echoing throughout the city. After being a commander for so many years, Commander Yabu naturally had loyal subordinates. They quickly gave the order, and wave after wave of murderous aura surged. Rebellion? A cold light flashed in Zichen's eyes, and he said, Then kill without mercy. He flashed and appeared in front of a troop of celestial guards. This troop was made up of hundreds of people. Their auras combined and strengthened the leader in front of them. The leader's aura surged rapidly. A mech appeared on his body. The mech strengthened his defense while also increasing his strength. Zi Chen stood in front of the leader, sword in hand. The leader's spear exploded with a terrifying aura. He stabbed it at Zi Chen's chest. Zi Chen's body flashed with lightning. This was the light of tricolored lightning, extremely dazzling. The tricolored energy was injected into the sword. The next moment, the sword trembled, creating ripples that affected space. Zi Chen unsheathed his sword. The tricolored sword light flew forward. The moment the spear, which was the core of the troop formation, met the blade light, it exploded with a loud bang. Even the spear was shattered along with it. After shattering the spear, the sword light did not slow down. It continued forward, the arc of the sword extending into the distance. Boom, 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 boom. Those were the sounds of various defenses shattering, dissipating into energy. The sword light continued forward, easily passing through the leader's body and extending into the distance. Wherever the blade light passed, all the celestial divine guards' bodies were cut in half and fell to the ground. Their high-quality armors were completely useless in front of Zi Chen. Zi Chen did not hold back with this slash. In order to intimidate, the slash extended from the front of the group to the back. When the saber lights disappeared, this group of several hundred heavenly divine guards had all been killed. The other heavenly god guards who were loyal to Commander Yabu paled when they saw this. They were not afraid of death. They could fight to the end. However, that was a battle to the death, a battle of back and forth, not a fate of being slaughtered like this. There was an essential difference between dying in battle and courting death. That slash consumed a lot of his energy. He can only use it a few more times. Captains, attack quickly. Commander Yabu's cold voice came from the sky once more. Zi Chen had already sheathed his sword. Holding the scabbard, he looked up at Commander Yabu and sneered, "This kind of human wave tactic is useless against me. Even if I slaughter everyone in this city today, I can still kill you. As a commander, you don't think for your subordinates. Instead, you order them to die. Speaking of which, when the heavenly battle god chose you to be a commander, his foresight was not very good." The other heavenly divine guards who had originally wanted to attack hesitated once more. They were not stupid and could see the situation. Commander Yabu's actions today were clearly not normal. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was rebelling. Zi Chen's fighting strength was extremely strong. One slash from his sword could kill a large number of people. Perhaps it was just as Commander Yabu had said. This slash consumed a lot of energy and would soon be exhausted. But who would die first? None of the people present wanted to die. While these people were hesitating, a black passage suddenly appeared in the sky. Countless lightning bolts descended from this passage. A heavy and vast aura swept out from it. Such a change attracted everyone's attention. Everyone raised their heads to look at the passage. When they sensed the aura coming from the passage, their expressions changed greatly. A large hall appeared in the passage. Lightning continuously wreaked havoc in the hall. Everyone in the heavenly divine manner felt an indescribable pressure. The buildings below began to light up one after another. It was the spirit arrays of the shops that had appeared on their own. Clearly, the people below felt a strong threat from this lightning-flashing palace. This is the lightning divine hall. The moment he saw the hall, Steward Sai Luo cried out involuntarily. His expression was filled with shock. As the steward of the heavenly divine manor, and as someone who could see heavenly gods every day, Steward Sai Luo naturally knew about the lightning divine hall. However, what he did not understand was why the lightning divine hall would appear here. Then, he recalled a conversation he had with a heavenly god. His gaze immediately fell on Zi Chen. When Tyrant and the others saw the lightning divine hall, they were also stunned. Then, their expressions became extremely complicated. Back then, they had died once. It was the lightning divine hall that preserved a portion of their souls, allowing them to be revived. In the entire lifestar, the lightning divine hall was the most mysterious thing. Buzz. The lightning divine hall that appeared from the passage floated in the air. Ripples spread out from the hall, causing the void to distort. Why would the lightning divine hall appear here? In the heavenly divine manner, after sensing the aura of the lightning divine hall, the uneasiness in Kai Meng's heart became even more intense. He released his divine sense and sensed everything in the city. Then, his expression changed greatly. The door of the lightning divine hall suddenly opened. Then, one after another, light figures descended from within. These light figures were like raindrops. They landed on the ground and transformed into a person. These people emitted extremely powerful auras. Although their auras were obviously different from the auras of the god race, everyone could still sense the corresponding realm. God King. They were all existences equivalent to the god race's God King. The weakest was at level 1, while the strongest was at level 8. This kind of method that was like scattering beans to create soldiers had actually created so many god kings. These god kings descended and surrounded the groups of heavenly god guards. That powerful aura caused all the heavenly god guards to feel fear in their hearts. Among these heavenly god guards, most of them were god generals. Even if they formed a troop formation, it was impossible for them to do anything to this group of god kings. Originally, the heavenly god guards had no intention of fighting. Now that they saw so many god kings, they gave up all thoughts of resisting. Not to mention how terrifying Zi Chen was, just these god kings alone had the means to destroy them. Commander Yabu did not expect Zi Chen to have such a move. His expression immediately became unsightly. With this, his plan to exhaust Zi Chen had failed. Right at this moment, Zi Chen's gaze landed on Commander Yabu. He coldly said, "It's your turn now." Chapter 3174. After suppressing the celestial guards, Zi Chen soared into the sky and charged at Yabu. Sensing the murderous intent surging from Zi Chen, Divine King Yabu's heart suddenly tightened. At this time, he had no choice but to release the arrow. With a roar, he charged toward Zi Chen. With a loud bang, the two attacks collided. In this direct clash, Commander Yabu was sent flying. Hundreds of feet away, he forcefully suppressed the surging blood in his heart and stared at Zi Chen in shock. With his current equipment and strength, he would have no problem fighting someone on the king ranking. He hadn't expected that he would lose to Zi Chen in a single exchange. Zi Chen was at the 8th level. It hadn't even been a day since Zi Chen had killed Thorpe. The news hadn't reached here yet. If Commander Yabu knew that Zi Chen had killed Thorpe, would he still be so stubborn? Zi Chen charged forward, his left hand gripping his scabbard and his right hand clenching into a fist. Die! Commander Yabu roared and swung his spear at Zi Chen. Where the spear passed, space twisted and a black crack appeared. With a loud bang, the spear and Zi Chen's fist collided. A powerful shockwave spread in all directions. The light array above the shops in the city started to twist violently, as if it would shatter at any moment. Commander Yabu let go of his spear, and he quickly retreated. His armor creaked as if he had reached the limit of his strength. The difference between the two of them was so great that Commander Yabu was terrified. He raised his head to look at the formation in the sky. His armor suddenly released a strong light. This light seemed to be connected to the formation. The aura around him surged once again. He's using the power of the divine array. Seeing this, Butler Siluo cried out in shock. Using the power of the divine array means that he's become one with the divine array. He's invincible. All of this was the work of a celestial god. It indicated Commander Yabu's position and that he was invincible in this city. His intentions back then had been good, but he hadn't expected Yabu to harbor such thoughts of betrayal. Steward Siluo quickly explained everything, but Zi Chen didn't really care. It was just a mere Yabu. Even if he fused with the divine formation, he would still only be at the 9th level. As long as they weren't heavenly gods, he had the ability to kill them. However, Zi Chen also became serious. When he rushed forward again, he unsheathed the long blade in his hand and slashed down. Spear! Commander Yabu roared. The spear flew back like a dragon and landed in his hand. He thrust his spear forward. He pierced a large hole in space, and this spear seemed to have passed through countless broken spaces. In an instant, it arrived in front of Zi Chen and clashed with his long blade. Powerful collisions shook the sky and then scattered in all directions. Pa! 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 Many of the formations on the surfaces of the towering buildings instantly shattered, and those buildings were on the verge of collapsing. Zichen hovered in the air, a hint of surprise in his eyes as he watched Yabu block his blade. It seemed that with the help of the divine formation, Yabu's combat ability wasn't much weaker than the dead Thorpe's. He slashed again with his blade. This time, he activated all of the blade's power. As the blade light surged, a heavy aura appeared. Commander Yabu thrust his spear forward again. Spear light flashed, and the spear arrived. Boom! The two powerful attacks met again, and Commander Yabu was sent flying. Countless rays of divine light flowed on his armor, neutralizing the power of Zichen's attack. With the help of the divine formation, his defense was extremely strong. Whoosh! Commander Yabu had just stabilized his body when he saw Zichen disappear. He roared and thrust his spear to the left. A large hole was instantly pierced through space, and within the black hole was spatial turbulence. Commander Yabu's expression didn't change. He turned around and thrust his spear forward again. Puff! This spear had pierced through Zichen's heart. Zichen had been pierced through by the spear. Seeing this, Divine King Yabu laughed heartily, but as soon as his laughter appeared, it came to an abrupt halt. An attack appeared from the side, landing on his body. With a violent boom, Divine King Yabu's body was sent flying. The divine light on the surface of his armor flickered as the terrifying power was continuously being neutralized by him. The one he'd just pierced was only Zichen's clone. Zichen stood in the back with his sword in hand. He frowned as he looked at Yabu, who was completely unharmed despite blocking his attack. It seemed that after fusing with the divine matrix, not only had his battle prowess increased, but his defense had also reached a terrifying level. Under these circumstances, he might not be invincible, but he was at least undefeatable. Zichen looked up at the sky. If he wanted to kill Yabu, he'd have to first break through the formation. However, he clearly didn't have the strength to do so. This thought flashed through his mind. In the next instant, Zichen appeared in front of Yabu again and slashed down with his blade. This time, he used his most powerful attack. Peng! All kinds of energy swirled around him. This powerful attack knocked away Commander Yabu's spear and sent him flying, but it still didn't kill him. This repeated several times, but it was still the same. Yabu laughed loudly. With the divine formation, I'm undefeatable. Let's see how many times you can use this attack. When you run out of energy, it will be the time for me to kill you. Then I'll let you see when I run out of energy. With that, Zichen slashed down again and again, sending Commander Yabu flying with each slash. Commander Yabu had no ability to fight back against Zichen, but he didn't think about fighting back. He was sent flying again and again by Zichen. He wanted to completely exhaust himself. Steward Siluo was very anxious. He hadn't expected things to turn out like this. Yi Qian and the others' expressions didn't change much. In fact, they were still very calm. Ya Wei and the others stood in the back. They couldn't participate in a battle like this. They couldn't even block the shockwaves. They'd once been able to contend with Zichen, but now they could only watch. Just like that, Zichen slashed out hundreds of times, but Yabu wasn't harmed in the slightest. Yabu, on the other hand, kept laughing. He looked at Zichen with disdain. Whoosh! Zichen's figure flashed, and he immediately retreated. What, you can't fight anymore? Yabu stared at him and said mockingly. Zichen said indifferently, I'm not fighting anymore. It's boring. Then it's my turn. Yabu's eyes shone with a cold light. His aura erupted once more. At this moment, even the light of the Great Formation seemed to grow brighter. Zichen glanced at Yabu, but didn't say anything. Whoosh! Heaven Breaker, who was standing to the side, flashed and transformed into a longbow. The moment the longbow appeared, the replica of the Heavenspan Divine Needle flew out of Zichen's world and arrived beside the longbow. Chapter 3175. The arrow absorbed a boundless amount of energy from the heavens and the earth as it shot toward Commander Yabu. At this moment, the entire formation trembled. In this city, I'm undefeatable. Commander Yabu roared at the incoming arrow, his body exploding with blinding light. All of the gods in the city focused their attention on the sky. Zi Chen had already fought Commander Yabu once, but hadn't been able to do anything to him. If this attack couldn't harm Commander Yabu either, then Zi Chen and the others would definitely be at a disadvantage against the undefeatable Commander Yabu. Kai Meng was also paying attention to everything that was happening in the city. Unlike the other 9th rank gods, who seemed relaxed, Kai Meng was extremely nervous. This was because he knew Zi Chen and his past. Without a doubt, this was a very difficult opponent to deal with. Zi Chen seemed very confident, but Kai Meng had lost all confidence. No matter what everyone thought, the arrow didn't stop. In an instant, it reached Yabu's side, but it didn't come into contact with his armor. A ripple appeared in front of the arrow, forming a tunnel. Just like that, the arrow flew into it. On the other side of the tunnel, it appeared behind Commander Yabu. With a squelch, the arrow flew out from behind Commander Yabu. Commander Yabu's powerful aura instantly disappeared. The divine formation that had been emitting strong light also dimmed. Commander Yabu wasn't injured in the slightest, but blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. His connection to the divine formation had disappeared as well. No one knew why this had happened, but it was obvious that this arrow had taken away Commander Yabu's greatest trump card. Without his greatest trump card, Commander Yabu probably wouldn't even be able to withstand a single blow from Zi Chen. Damn it! Kai Meng cursed in Heavenly God City. Sure enough, things had developed exactly as he'd feared. Without their greatest trump card, Commander Yabu, there was only death left. Prepare for battle, Kai Meng said coldly. Seeing that Commander Yabu had lost contact with the formation, the expressions of the celestial divine guards changed drastically. Even the strongest commander wasn't a match for Zi Chen, so it was even more impossible for them to defeat Zi Chen. Adding on the fact that these powerful existences were comparable to god kings, they had completely lost the will to fight. The heaven-connecting divine needle turned into a ray of light and flew back into Zi Chen's hand. At this time, cries of surprise sounded from all around. Clearly, many people recognized that this was the heavenly god needle. A strange expression appeared on Zi Chen's face as he held the heaven-piercing divine needle. However, that expression quickly disappeared, and Zi Chen walked over to Commander Yabu. At this moment, Commander Yabu's face was pale. He was clearly heavily injured. This was also because of Zi Chen's instructions. Otherwise, Commander Yabu wouldn't have been able to survive Heavenbreaker's arrow. What did Kai Meng give you? Zi Chen asked indifferently as he faced Commander Yabu. Commander Yabu said coldly, I don't know what you're talking about. You've broken the rules, so I'm following the rules. If you want to kill me or torture me, do as you please. Zi Chen's lips curved into a faint smile. Oh, is that so? Of course. Commander Yabu puffed out his chest proudly. Zi Chen's smile turned into a cold sneer. You have a family, don't you? Commander Yabu's expression changed. Zi Chen, you shouldn't implicate my family. It seems that you know me. I thought that a commander like you was too arrogant. Zi Chen laughed mockingly and said indifferently, I'll give you one last chance. With your current strength, what exactly did Kai Meng promise you? Or rather, why are you doing this? If you continue to resist, not only will you die, but your family will die as well. All of them. Don't doubt my ability to carry out my orders, and don't even think about using the celestial divine guards to pressure me. They're too weak. You only have one chance. Make good use of it. Seeing the conflicted expression on Commander Yabu's face, Zi Chen continued, You made the wrong choice, so I won't let you go. You can use your death to exchange for the safety of your family. Or rather, the safety of your family. It's true that you shouldn't implicate your family, but you have to tell the truth. It's a law fragment condensed by a celestial god. The hesitation and struggle on Commander Yabu's face vanished as he spoke the truth. But as he spoke these words, he seemed to age instantly. This was because the prestige he had built up over the years would completely vanish with these words. As expected, the celestial divine guards all began to look at him in shock. A law fragment. What's that? Zi Chen was taken aback as he looked at Commander Yabu in confusion. A celestial god law fragment is something that a celestial god expends an enormous amount of effort to condense. If you can comprehend a single piece, You can break through to the celestial god realm, Commander Yabu explained. Break through to the celestial god realm? Zichen was shocked and turned to look at the steward. The steward shook his head. I've never heard of something like a celestial god lore fragment. I don't know if it's true or not, but there's one thing I'm certain of. Breaking through to the celestial god realm isn't something that can be achieved through hard work and cultivation. This was something that was publicly acknowledged in the god realm. Otherwise, why would there be so few celestial gods in the god realm despite the countless talented god clans? You're lying. You definitely know about the celestial god lore fragment. Commander Yabu glared at the steward. Kai Meng said that you've been keeping it safe. As long as I capture you, I'll naturally be able to obtain it. The steward sighed. I don't know what Kai Meng said to you, but from what I know, you've been deceived. Kai Meng didn't capture me for the celestial god lore fragment. What? Commander Yabu's expression instantly changed. Do you think I need to lie to you at a time like this? This time, young Master Zichen and the goddess had returned to deal with this matter. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it. The steward shook his head and said disappointedly, back then, the celestial god valued you so much. What a pity, there's still a chance. There's no rush. At this moment, Zichen smiled faintly. Everyone was stunned, then looked at Zichen. Since he's unwilling to give up, then let's see how this ends and make him give up completely. After saying this, Zichen ignored Commander Yabu and flew directly toward Heavenly God City. Zichen stopped outside the mansion. Out of respect for the celestial god, he didn't choose to force his way in. Tyrant and the others stood behind Zichen, while Yi Qian and Xin Lin stood to his left and right. The steward also brought Commander Yabu to the celestial god estate. As for the celestial god guards, they were still under the control of the experts of Lightning Divine Hall. Since a guest has arrived, of course we must welcome him. Open the door and welcome him. Kai Meng's voice rang out from within the celestial god estate. Upon hearing this voice, Zichen frowned. I'm going home, and you're not the master of the celestial god estate. Chapter 3176. Zichen's expression didn't change at all when he sensed the intense killing intent. The longbow formed by Heaven Breaker flew in front of Zichen. Zichen took a step forward. Even if it was a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, he had to enter. Zichen had been to the Sky God's mansion many times, so he was familiar with the place. As soon as he entered the Sky God's mansion, a powerful attack appeared from a rooftop and headed toward him. Zichen punched out, shattering the attack with a bang. At the same time, an arrow flew out and skimmed over the rooftop. A level 9 being tumbled down and landed with a thud. Zichen didn't slow down and walked straight toward the core hall of the Sky God's mansion. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures appeared in the distance and attacked from 3 sides. Zichen held his saber and slashed forward, shattering the attacks in front of him. The devil ape and the monk stood on the left and right respectively, protecting Yi Qian and Xinlin. Bang! Bang! Although the 2 of them were level 7, they could still withstand level 9 attacks. The monk blocked the attacks the easiest, while the devil ape took 3 steps back. Whoosh! 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 When the 3 attacks were destroyed, 3 arrows flew out and headed straight for the 3 people in the distance. The 3 level 9 beings died where the arrows passed. It's the foreign races. The butler's expression changed when he sensed the level 9 aura. Off to the side, Yabu was also stunned by the sight of these outsiders. As the leader of this city, he had no idea when these non-humankind beings had come to this city. Whoosh! Another level 9 foreign race appeared, but this time, Zichen teleported to his side before he could attack. He unsheathed his long saber and flashed it. Puff! The level 9's body was split into 2. Zichen released his spiritual senses and enveloped the Sky God's mansion. Then, his body began to disappear. This was a true teleportation technique. He appeared in one place after another. Every time he appeared, a level 9 would be killed. He never missed a beat. As for the level 9 beings he couldn't kill in time, he left them to Heaven Breaker. Zichen killed one with a saber, while Heaven Breaker killed one with an arrow. Kai Meng sat on the main seat of the Sky God's mansion. He released his spiritual senses and saw the battle outside. Every time a level 9 being died, the corner of his eyes would twitch. They were level 9 beings represented the strongest combat power in this world, but they were so weak in front of Zichen. His hands were also trembling slightly, and he was no longer as calm and composed as he was before. Damn it, how can he be so strong? The enormous pressure caused him to involuntarily curse. However, he discovered that his voice was actually trembling. Clearly, he was excessively frightened. God's Heaven's Mansion's mansion was too strong. He's too strong. Looks like we can only negotiate, one of the level 9 said. How do we negotiate? Kai Meng asked. SSSSSSS? Yes, that's right. Kai Meng's eyes lit up. I'm thus. Zichen won't dare to kill me. Is that so? Zichen's voice came from outside the hall. Kai Meng was alerted. The level 9 beings he'd arranged outside were all killed. Dozens of level 9 beings died just like that. Kai Meng couldn't care less about the pain in his heart. His heart was filled with fear again. The door to the hall suddenly darkened as someone walked in. Kai Meng's heart skipped a beat when he saw Zichen. He suppressed the fear in his heart and shouted, "How dare you? Who let you in?" Zichen only glanced at Kai Meng for a moment before shifting his gaze to the two level 9 experts. "Alien race," Zichen said calmly. The expressions of the two changed slightly. Before they could say anything, an ice-cold word "die" reverberated within the large hall. Zichen's figure disappeared from his original spot, and after disappearing twice in the hall, he once again stood in the same spot. The two LV9 experts standing next to Kai Meng froze and their bodies slowly fell down. Kai Meng pointed at Zichen, but found that his teeth were chattering. He couldn't say anything. This is the god's residence. You let an alien race in. This is blasphemy to the gods, Zichen looked at Kai Meng and said calmly. But the calmer his voice was, the more terrified Kai Meng felt. You're thus. Even if the gods in chaos, this should have your own pride. But you've been reduced to a pawn. Zichen shook his head. His eyes were full of disdain. Then his eyes turned cold. Come out yourself. I don't want to kill anymore. What a good trick. An old voice sounded, and then an old man appeared behind Kai Meng. Ancestor. Seeing this old man, Kai Meng hurriedly got down from his seat and bowed respectfully to the old man. The old man ignored Kai Meng. Instead, he looked at Zichen and said, I'm Qiuji clan's great elder, Qiuji Daomeng. Zichen, why have you come to the god's residence? To drive the two of you away. Zichen said calmly. Qiuji Daomeng's eyes flashed with anger. He shouted, How dare you? Meng is this S, and this is the god's, his home. What right do you have to drive him away? Zichen didn't get angry at all. He said calmly, If you don't leave, you'll die. How arrogant. Who are you to drive us away? The S-fiancé? Qiuji Daomeng said mockingly. I don't need any status. I'll use my fist. Zichen raised his fist and said, The gods is in chaos. Everything depends on your fist. My fist is strong enough. That's what I'm relying on. If you leave now, the two of you can still live. Otherwise, you'll have to eat my fist. You want to start a war with our Qiuji clan? The old man said angrily. Start a war? Zichen laughed mockingly. A mere Qiuji clan dares to mention the word war in front of me? If I wanted to destroy the Qiuji clan, I could do it in an instant. I don't believe that your Qiuji clan has an army of god kings. The lightning divine hall was still floating in the air above heavenly god city. Both the old man and Kai Meng could see the god kings flying out of the lightning divine hall clearly. If all of these experts were mobilized, destroying the Qiuji clan wouldn't be a problem at all. The old man also knew the crux of the matter. His expression gradually softened, and he was no longer as unyielding as before. He said, As the SS, Kai Meng has the right to inherit a portion of the S army. Clearly, the old man had seen the situation clearly. He didn't want to take it all for himself, but wanted to get a share of it. Yabu, who was following behind, didn't hear the words God's law from start to finish. He already felt that he had been deceived by Kai Meng. And the instigator of all this should be this old man. Steward. Zichen turned around and looked at the steward. The steward stepped forward and said, according to the god's decree, the god's army will be left to goddess Xinlin alone. Chapter 31:77. The divine god's order in butler Siluo's hand was the most important thing left behind by the god of heaven. Now that the divine god's order was out, it would decide the ownership of the divine army. When the elder of the Qiuji family appeared, Kai Meng stood respectfully at the side. When he heard butler Siluo's words, his expression changed, but he did not dare to say anything. In the divine world, the sons of heaven had the bloodline of the divine god. Their combat power was much stronger than those of the same level. Some could even fight above their level. However, Kai Meng had just become a divine king. He was only a level 2 divine king. Even if he could fight above his level, he could only fight against a level 3 divine king. Now that the divine world was in chaos, even level 9 divine kings were in danger. A mere level 2 divine king was not enough. If it was a peaceful era, they could be nurtured patiently. However, now that the divine world was in chaos, all the families were in a precarious situation. There was no time to nurture a son of heaven. The remaining value of the sons of heaven gods would be completely squeezed dry. If Xinlin became the marriage partner, Kai Meng would become a chess piece. Therefore, Kai Meng's position in the family was not high at all. When the elder appeared, he lost his right to speak. Xinlin stepped forward and took the divine god's order with both hands. Her expression was solemn, and her emotions were still complicated. Everything seemed like a dream. Just yesterday, she was still worried about the marriage. Today, she came to the divine manor and found out that her father had left the divine army to her. The old man stared at the divine order in Xinlin's hand. His eyes flickered, sometimes showing madness, sometimes showing struggle. You should leave now. Zichen said indifferently, if I go back on my words, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. The elder turned his head and stared at Zichen. His eyes were filled with unwillingness. Zichen said, when your fist is big enough, you can come and find me again. However, when that time comes, I will not hold back. There is no friendship between us. Even if there is, it will be gone after today. I won't see you off. His expression turned cold, and his tone was cold. Kai Meng's heart trembled. He did not dare to look into Zichen's eyes. Go. The elder could only leave. Just as Zichen had said, the celestial realm was in chaos right now. Whoever's fist was harder would be the one in charge. Before they had the strength to fight against Zichen, they could only leave. Otherwise, they would only be killed in vain. Of course, he did not expect Zichen to be so unyielding. He did not even put the Qiuji family in his eyes. There was not even a possibility of negotiation. One must know that Qiuji was definitely not a small family. Isn't goddess Xinlin marrying Thorpe today? Why would he appear here? Why would Thorpe let her go? Walking out of the hall, the old man had this thought in his mind. He decided to inquire about this matter. When the two of them left, they also took the people they brought with them. After Xinlin received the token, she already knew the function of this token. This was a token that could only be activated by someone with the bloodline of a heavenly god. Only the son of a heavenly god could successfully activate it. She poured her energy into it, and the divine god's token began to glow. At the same time, a bloodline appeared in Xinlin's hand, and the bloodline poured into the divine god's token. Wang. A ripple appeared on the token. The ripple caused the space to distort, forming a huge passageway. The passageway led to the place where the heavenly god army was. When the passageway appeared, Xinlin looked to the side. Yi Qian nodded at her. Xinlin walked in, followed by Yi Qian, Zichen, and the others. Finally, the housekeeper and Commander Yabu also entered together. After entering the passageway, they arrived in the sky above a world. This world had undulating mountain ranges, and the area was huge. Sometimes, a tyrannical aura would appear. As the group arrived, the tyrannical aura disappeared in an instant. Then, many eyes fell on these people in the sky. Zichen's spiritual thoughts had already spread out. Within the range of his perception, there were many experts in different places. Some were in groups of 3 or 5, and some were alone. They were all existences at the level of Divine King. Their bodies surged with a strong murderous aura. Obviously, they were not ordinary Divine Kings. On a mountain peak, a person sat cross-legged. He looked at the group in the sky with a strange expression. "You're here so soon?" The next moment, his aura changed instantly. It was as if there was a straight beam of light shooting into the sky. He shouted, "Divine God Army, assemble." His voice spread out in all directions, echoing throughout the world. Powerful auras suddenly appeared. The God Kings who stayed in different parts of this world were gathering at the fastest speed possible. Ji Tung and Ku Nag. Yabu, who was at the back, saw a familiar figure. His expression immediately changed, and he cried out involuntarily. Some of them were people he had brought with him. But hadn't they all died in battle during the trial? Why were they here? In the blink of an eye, the army of Divine Kings had gathered. There were more than 100,000 of them. Their tyrannical aura was almost suffocating. Yabu looked at the army of Divine Kings. He was completely stunned, not knowing what to say. "Siluo, long time no see." The leader raised his head and looked at the housekeeper. "Bahe, so it's you," the housekeeper said, his eyes filled with surprise. "Bahe, could he be the first commander of Heavenly God City?" Yabu's expression changed again. Heavenly God City had existed for a very long time, but Yabu wasn't the first commander. There were several commanders before him. Some of them had died in battle, some had died during trials, and some had gone missing. The first commander, Bahe, was even more famous. Before Tarjon became a heavenly god, he had already followed Tarjon around the world. After Tarjon became a heavenly god, he guarded Heavenly God City and continued to lead troops into battle. After all, at that time, Heavenly God City was desolate and filled with creatures from another dimension. They needed to fight and expand. "Yes, it's me." His gaze swept over Yi Qian and Xin Lin. "This is the successor chosen by the Heavenly God." "Yes, Goddess Xin Lin." The housekeeper looked at Goddess Xin Lin. The goddess walked forward. His gaze fell on Xin Lin. He frowned slightly. "She's too weak." "Siluo, do you think someone like her can control the Heavenly God Army?" The housekeeper said, "With you, Bahe, there's no need to control them." Bahe shook his head. "We were all specially chosen by the Heavenly God. Every one of us has walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. It's inevitable that these people will be unruly. If we don't meet a wise leader, even I can't do anything about it." The housekeeper was stunned. "So you're saying that you're going to break your promise to the Heavenly God?" "Of course not. It's just that Goddess Xin Lin's cultivation is too low." He shook his head and sighed. The leader of a pack of tigers and wolves could only be an even more powerful existence. It definitely couldn't be a sheep. In the eyes of the Heavenly Divine Army, Xin Lin was not even a sheep in front of them. So what if her cultivation is low? Just because her cultivation is low now doesn't mean she'll be low in the future. "Bark, could it be that you were born at level 9? Chapter 3178. This woman's baleful aura is not any weaker than that of the Heavenly God Army. She is not alone. After she appeared, another team appeared. Seeing this team, Zi Chen's face showed a trace of astonishment. These people are all women and there are more than 100 of them. Midi, seeing this woman, housekeeper's face showed a trace of surprise. Then he smiled. Apparently, she is also an acquaintance. The woman named Midi nodded towards housekeeper Siluo and then her eyes fell on Yi Qian and Xin Lin. "What are you doing here?" He looked at the woman and slightly frowned. "Since you think that the successor is weak, I naturally have to appear. When the Heavenly God left, what did you promise me?" Midi stared at Bahe and said, "After leaving, I will protect her. You don't need to worry about her." "Midi, this is not what you think, Heavenly God Army." Before Bahe could finish, Midi interrupted him and said, "What's wrong? You don't think you can convince the public? Who is not convinced, come and fight with me." Regardless of whether it was a general or a God King level soldier, all of them looked away. They didn't dare to look at Midi. They are not unfamiliar with Midi, She is a formidable existence who comes to fight with Commander Ba whenever she wants. Moreover, they are very clear that they are part of the Heavenly God Army and Midi is part of the Heavenly God's Forbidden Guard. These people are all women but their fighting strength is not weaker than theirs. Ba he said with difficulty, this is not a matter of fighting or not, this is a matter of principle. Midi, don't make trouble here, this is a matter of great importance, this is not a trifling matter. Mph, what is so important? I think it is just an excuse. Since she is the descendant of the Heavenly God, her bloodline is naturally powerful. Sooner or later, she will grow up. Midi said. Ba he said with wry smile, you also know that sooner or later, do you think there is still much time left? What do you mean? It seems like you don't care about what is happening outside. The Heavenly God has left, the divine world will be in chaos and war will break out everywhere. Under such circumstances, how can she have time to grow? Ba he said, once the Heavenly God Army leaves, I am afraid they will join the war. Since you don't want to follow me, why don't you follow my sister? At this time, Xin Lin's voice sounded. Speaking of which, she was only a rank 3. Her realm was indeed not high. At this level, wanting to control this celestial deity legion was indeed not easy. Hearing Xin Lin's words, Midi and Bak's eyes fell on Yi Chen. It's only level 7. Although it's still very weak, it's still passable, Bak said helplessly. Not rank 7, but rank 7. Zi Chen, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. Only then did everyone's attention fall on him. What's the difference? Bak asked. Of course. Level 7 was only the level of this world, while level 7 was the level of the Divine King Heavenly Domain. There was a huge difference between the two. For example, a rank 7 can defeat a rank 7, Zi Chen said. When Bak heard this, he couldn't help but sneer. A few strange sneers also came from the group behind him. So, you're saying that you're a rank 8, and you can defeat any rank 8? Barton looked at Zi Chen. No. Zi Chen shook his head. The disdainful laughter in the surroundings grew louder, and there were many provocative gazes among them. I can defeat any rank 9, Zi Chen said with a smile. Shameless boasting. Bak's face immediately became gloomy. He could tolerate the weak, but he definitely couldn't tolerate deception. As Goddess Yi Chen's guard, why don't the two of us give it a try? Zi Chen took a step forward and released his aura. It was very provocative. He had already seen that if he didn't fight now, it would be impossible to make these people listen to him. Since he wanted to fight, he naturally had to choose the strongest battle. One battle could decide the outcome of the battle. Fight with you? Bak's expression was still full of disdain. Obviously, he was a rank 9, and he didn't want to fight with a rank 8. I'll just find someone of the same level to fight with you. Zi Chen smiled and said, why, are you afraid? Kid, your provocation is too lousy. I'll fight with you. A strong man walked out. He was a rank 8. Zi Chen glanced at the rank 8 strong man and said, after fighting with you, do I still have to fight with others? My time is limited. I'll fight with your strongest. If I lose, we'll leave immediately, and you'll be free from then on. If not, you'll have to work for us. When these people heard that, they all had strange looks on their faces. Since he dared to speak like that and was the goddess's master, no one would treat Zi Chen as a mere guard anymore. Midi looked at the butler and asked, who's this guy? Goddess Yi Chen's fiancé, Zi Chen. Don't underestimate him. The butler smiled and said, Bak, I suggest you don't fight this battle. Otherwise, you'll be embarrassed. If you lose your reputation, it'll be even harder to lead troop. Midi's eyes lit up. Bak, on the other hand, flew into a rage out of humiliation. Siluo, are you saying that I can't beat a rank 8? Not rank 8, rank 8. It's not embarrassing to lose to a rank 8. If I were to defeat you as a rank 8, that would be embarrassing. Zi Chen smiled faintly. What an arrogant brat. Then let me see what you've got. Bak was clearly enraged. He did not care about the difference in their realms and released his rank 9 aura. Behind him, the divine kings who were previously very disciplined dispersed instantly. They cleared out a space and looked like they were going to watch a good show. The battlefield had been cleared out. Zichen did not hesitate and rushed forward directly. He threw a punch. On his fist, 3-colored energy light circled. An extremely terrifying aura was released from Zichen's body. When they sensed this aura, the heavenly god army, who were originally full of disdain, all changed their expressions. Bark shouted loudly. He mobilized his energy and threw a punch as well. When the two fists met, there was a loud boom in the sky. Then, amidst the cries of surprise, Bark kept retreating. Zichen's figure only swayed a little before he steadied himself. He looked at Bark opposite him and said, again. After saying that, he threw another punch. The power of this punch was even stronger than before. Bark was very surprised by the power contained in Zichen's punch. At this moment, when he felt this stronger punch, battle intent rose in his eyes. However, he stopped underestimating his opponent and no longer dared to underestimate Zichen. He threw a punch. A beast shadow appeared on his fist. The beast shadow was extremely ferocious, causing the power of this punch to be even stronger. Thunder explosion. Zichen's indifferent voice rang out. The light of his fist exploded. There seemed to be countless thunder in the sky. The sound of the explosion was deafening. The power of the explosion enveloped the beast shadow. Accompanied by a shrill scream, the beast shadow directly exploded. At the same time, Bark's body was sent flying by the punch. Zichen did not hold back in this punch. This was his peak punch. Seeing Bark fly backward, there was an uproar. They did not expect this self-proclaimed rank 8 guard to be so powerful. A strange light flashed in Midi's eyes. Chapter 3179. He flew forward, his expression fluctuating. Zichen had only punched twice, but he could already feel how powerful the opponent was. Most importantly, the opponent was only level 8. Once he reached level 9, how strong would he be? Just those 2 punches were enough to sweep away most of the level 9s. Zichen's words were not exaggerated at all. Although he did not use his full strength, he did not dare to say that those 2 punches were Zichen's strongest move. His gaze swept across the field and saw that many of the Sky Deity Army's faces were filled with shock. Being able to suppress most of them was already enough. After all, these people still needed him to lead them. No more fighting. With an expert like you leading us, we are willing to follow Goddess Yi Qian. He said. Yi Qian stepped forward and looked at everyone. Then I will have to trouble you generals. But I still have many things to do. Goddess Xin Lin will lead everyone for now. He was startled and then smiled bitterly. Xin Lin was also startled. Now the Sky Deity Army still fell into her hands. She turned around and saw Ben Senlu, Yang Wei, Sina, and Xavier standing there. They looked at each other and then nodded. Xin Lin said, I want to return to the Divine King Heavenly Domain. Yi Qian turned around and looked at Xin Lin. She was puzzled. Why? The Sky Deity Army is yours. No one will dare to bully you from now on, but I am still too weak. In this chaos, relying on external forces is not a long-term plan. Xin Lin said. I have made up my mind. Thank you for everything you have done for me. Seeing that Xin Lin had made up her mind, Yi Qian could only look at Zichen. Zichen nodded. Since you have made up your mind, you can go there. Compared to the chaos here, that place is more suitable for growth. If you want to leave, you better call Kai Meng. With Zichen's insight, he could see that Kai Meng was just a pawn. His situation in the Qiuji family could be imagined. This time, he did not succeed in obtaining the Sky Deity Army. His situation would be even worse. Xin Lin handed over the Heavenly God Decree to Yi Qian. Yi Qian took the decree, looked at everyone and said, since that is the case, all generals will follow me first. When Goddess Xin Lin returns, she will lead everyone. The Heavenly Deity Army naturally had no objections. They reorganized themselves and saluted Goddess Yi Qian. Their voices were as loud as thunder. In that case, we will follow the goddess. We are divine forbidden guards. We will protect the goddess from any danger. Midi stepped forward and said, Thank you, General. Yi Qian nodded. Yabu, your aura is very weak. Are you injured? Right at this moment, a voice sounded from the crowd. When Yabu heard the voice and saw who it was, he was shocked. Commander Seko. Commander Seko was the one before Yabu had taken over as commander. After what had happened, Yabu clearly understood that those existences, whether dead or missing, had all come here. The so-called heavenly deity lore fragment was naturally a lie. Kai Meng's true goal was the heavenly deity army. Your aura is very weak. Did you fight someone? Commander Saike asked. Yabu glanced at Zichen. His expression was self-evident. Seko was shocked. You didn't use the power of the divine formation? Yabu laughed bitterly when he heard that. This shocked Seko. At the same time, the expressions of the other commanders in the crowd changed. Didn't that mean that Zichen could break through Yabu's defenses after using the divine formation? Are you the previous commander of the heavenly deity guard? Zichen looked at Seko and asked. Yes. Seko said. You have a good relationship with Yabu? Zichen asked again. I'm the one who brought him out. I wonder what happened outside. Sir actually wants to fight with Yabu? Seko asked. Leave this place now and take over the heavenly deity guard. Zichen didn't answer Seko's question. Instead, he looked at Yabu and said, Yabu, I will spare your life. You are relieved of your position as commander of the heavenly deity guard. You are not allowed to enter the heavenly deity guard in the future. Thank you, Sir Zichen. Yabu bowed and thanked him. The others clearly didn't know what had happened, but seeing Yabu's respectful expression towards Zichen and his weak aura, they could faintly guess what had happened. Commander Ba, I'll have to trouble you to come with us. We still have some matters to attend to in Heavenly God City. We can't stay here for too long. We'll be leaving soon, Zichen said to Ba. All right. Bark nodded. He could already tell that Zichen was the one who had the final say in this group. His words were even more important than the goddess. As for why, he asked Sai Luo about it later. However, Sai Luo seemed to think that it was only natural that Zichen gave the orders. Then, Yi Qian activated the token and another spatial tunnel appeared. Everyone walked out of the tunnel. This time, all of Di's heavenly deity guard had appeared. As for the heavenly deity guard, only Bark and Seko were present. After returning to the heavenly god estate, the group walked out and saw the lightning god temple floating in the air. Although they didn't recognize the lightning god temple, the aura released by the lightning god temple gave them quite a bit of pressure. Apart from that, there were the god kings who controlled the heavenly deity guards. Although Bark and the others didn't know what had happened, they didn't ask. At this moment, Zichen waved his hand. The god kings all flashed and returned to the lightning god temple. In the next moment, the lightning god temple disappeared into the void and returned to Zichen's world. When the lightning god temple disappeared, the heavenly deity guards felt relieved. Bark nodded at Seko. Seko's figure flashed and appeared in the air. I am Seko, the previous commander of the heavenly deity guards. All heavenly deity guards, listen to my orders. Return to camp and await orders. Yes. All of the heavenly deity guards shouted in unison. Many of them had never seen Seko before, but that didn't stop them from hearing his name. The moment they became heavenly deity guards, they first had to understand the history of the heavenly deity guards. Although they were puzzled, the most important thing for these heavenly deity guards was to carry out orders. Guards in the city, clean up the corpses. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Commander Seko gave another order. In this city, other than the heavenly deity guards, there were other guards. These guards were ordinary existences, and they were also the ones with the most numbers. Immediately, ordinary guards arrived and began to clean up the corpses on the ground. The group returned to the heavenly god estate. Steward Sai Luo took the heavenly god token and went to find Kai Meng. Yi Qian, on the other hand, discussed the future development of Heavenly God City with Commander Bark. During this time, she gave the Heavenly God token to Bark. When Heavenly God City was in danger, Bark could summon the Heavenly God army to fight. Goddess, this is something left behind by the Heavenly God. I will now pass it to you. A ray of divine light appeared in Di's hand. When the divine light faded, a divine needle surrounded by rainbow light appeared. This is the Heavenly God Needle. Chapter 3180. Back in Heavenly God City, Heavenbreaker's arrow caused the void to tremble. When Zi Chen held the Heavenly God Needle replica, he sensed that there was something strange about it. It wasn't an ordinary replica. It was said that it was related to the real thing, similar to the World Annihilation Divine Bell clone that Yi Chen obtained. The latter was personally given by the Bell. This was left behind by the Heavenly God. This was the real Heavenly God Needle, one of the few supreme treasures of the divine world. He didn't expect it to be with the pagoda battle Heavenly God. Strange expressions appeared on the faces of Qi Wei and the others. They were extremely shocked. Yi Chen looked at the Heavenly God Needle with interest. Then, she took it and handed it to Xin Lin. She said, "Take it. You will have something to protect yourself in the heavenly domain." Midi's expression changed, and so did Bark's. This was the Heavenly God Needle, a supreme treasure of the divine world. How could they give it away so easily? Xin Lin shook her head. In the divine monarch realm, as long as we are careful and don't take risks, there won't be any danger. On the contrary, the divine world is in chaos and danger is everywhere. The Heavenly God Needle will be more useful here. Though Xin Lin used to be very headstrong, she still had a discerning eye. She saw that the arrow that injured Commander Yabu was actually a Heavenly God Needle, but it was only a replica. How could a replica compare to the real thing? Clearly, the real thing would be more useful here. It's fine, we have our ways. Yi Chen didn't care. Xin Lin shook her head again. This thing is useless in the divine monarch realm. If you really want to give me something, why don't you give me the replica? Yi Chen looked at Zi Chen, clearly at a loss. That's fine. Zi Chen nodded. If the real thing was left in this world, it would be more useful. He took out the replica and gave it to Xin Lin. At the same time, he extended a finger and gently tapped Xin Lin's forehead. A ray of light entered her sea of consciousness. This was the method to control the Heavenly God Needle. Thank you, brother-in-law. Xin Lin mischievously winked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen was stunned. He wasn't used to Xin Lin's attitude. Fortunately, he remained calm and immediately smiled. Right, there's also this. Yi Chen took out the World Annihilation God Bell clone that she had personally nurtured and gave it to Xin Lin. The quality of the World Annihilation God Bell is the same as the God Needle. They are both related to the real thing and belong to the incarnation level. This time, Xin Lin obtained the Divine Clock and Divine Needle. Even if they were just imitations, they were enough for her to use at her current level. The disturbance this time was resolved just like that, and it was time for everyone to leave. The housekeeper brought Kai Meng back. Kai Meng looked at Zi Chen and the others with an unnatural expression. On the way here, the butler told Keeman everything. Did it go well? Zi Chen asked. After compensating with some resources, I brought him here. The housekeeper said, it's not an exaggeration to say that the world is fickle at this time. Next, the group prepared to return. Originally, Ben Senlu and the others wanted to go back and see if their Heaven God Father had left behind a Heaven God army for them. However, after seeing what had happened, they completely gave up on that idea. At the same time, they rejoiced. Fortunately, Zi Chen went to save Xin Lin. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened when they returned to their families. Kai Meng's current situation might be a true portrayal of their future. Thus, they gave up on the idea of going back and decided to immediately go to the God Monarch celestial domain. When they were strong enough, they would take back what belonged to them. When Zi Chen fought the Heaven God armies Ba He, they had already discussed this. Next, they bid farewell to Ba He and the housekeeper. The two of them would guard Heaven God City. Heavenbreaker easily tore open space. Zi Chen's group, as well as Di's 100 Heaven God Imperial Guards, all entered the passage. When they came out, they were already in the City of Trees. In the God world, as long as they had accurate coordinates, Heavenbreaker could easily reach it. Di, who had come to this city for the first time, was surprised when she saw it. She looked left and right. Yi Chen personally arranged a place for them to stay. Zi Chen followed Heavenbreaker to the God Monarch celestial domain to send Xin Lin and the others there. When they returned to the second floor of the God Monarch celestial domain, Zichen left some God King soul essences for Xin Lin and the others. At the same time, he told them that it would be best for them to fight here and accumulate contribution points. After all, the time difference between the two sides was about 10 times. 100 years here was 1,000 years in the outside world. After that, Zichen went to the Iron Sword faction and told them to look after these people. After that, he went to the encampment. This was where the people he had brought with him last time stayed. This time, Zichen saw Jolena. She was surprised to see Zichen. "I want to go back." This was the first thing she said when she saw Zichen. "You're only at rank 2. Why are you in such a hurry to go back?" Zichen didn't understand. Jolena said, "I'm not good at cultivation. Management is my specialty. There's no point in staying here. I want to go back to the City of Trees." When it came to cultivation, it didn't matter if one had talent or not. With the accumulation of endless resources, everything would come naturally. Now, Jolena was in a hurry to go back. Clearly, she was worried about the City of Trees. "If you insist, then fine." Zichen nodded. The City of Trees now didn't lack powerful god kings. However, management talents like Jolena were very rare. Zichen didn't stay in this world for long. He left and returned to the City of Trees. More than 10 days had passed. Misty and the others had a preliminary understanding of the City of Trees. The fierce battle outside shocked them. After learning about Zichen's plan, Misty strongly expressed that she wanted to bring the Imperial Guard with her. Zichen hesitated for a moment before agreeing. Once again, Zichen led Tyrant and the others into the City of Trees. This time, there shouldn't be anything that could stop him. Misty followed Zichen and saw many mother nests of different sizes and realms. She had lived for a very long time and participated in countless battles. However, she had never seen so many mother nests. From the low-level god generals' mother nests to the high-level god generals' mother nests, there were countless god emissaries' mother nests. Just the resources from these mother nests were enough to start a family. "Are you trying to break the rules?" A level 9 god king's aura appeared. A foreign race member shouted at Zichen. Zichen's response was a slash. All along, everyone had gotten used to his rough ways. After one slash, the level 9 god king was killed. Zichen led his people deeper into the City of Trees. Behind the level 9 god king, there was a group of god king level mother nests that didn't have time to escape. They were killed by Zhong Haotian. The other god kings were also killed by the Imperial Guard. Another group of mother nests was wiped out. If one looked down from the sky, they would see that Zichen was walking in a straight line. Occasionally, he would change his route to kill mother nests. After he was done, he would return to the same straight line. If this straight line continued, it would lead to the core of the foreign race. There were countless powerful existences living here. They were all level 9 divine kings and there were countless of them. The chaos in the divine world had always been within their expectations. Everything was progressing according to their expectations. Everything was going smoothly. However, Zichen's appearance caused all of this to no longer go smoothly. Chapter 3181. In a retro castle, there was a luxuriously decorated meeting hall. At this moment, there were more than 20 foreign races sitting in the hall. They were all level 9, representing the highest combat power in this world. "Outrageous, a mere god race dares to provoke us, we must kill him," a radical middle-aged man said. "That person is aggressive, he has already killed many of our people, his combat power is very strong." Another person said, frowning. "So what? We have countless warriors, if he wants to survive under the encirclement, he must be a heavenly god." The first person said again, "As for the heavenly gods of the divine world, everyone should know that they are already dead." Khan Ding, calm down, that person's strength is beyond our imagination, he only brought 100 people, but he killed many of our subordinates without any casualties, we must be careful. Another person said. "Yes, that person is too strong, it's better to be careful." "That's right, let's discuss again." Another person persuaded. With a bang, the level 9 divine king named Khan Ding slammed the table and stood up, shouting, What's there to discuss? As long as there are more people, there is no battle that we can't win. Since you are not willing to fight, give me the people, I will fight. Khan Ding, giving people is a small matter, we are worried about your safety. Khan Ding interrupted him and said indifferently, cut the crap, either you give me the people, or you fight. How many people are you planning to bring? Someone asked immediately. 1,000 each. At this moment, there were more than 20 people sitting in the hall. 1,000 each would mean 20,000 people. This was a huge number. Even if there were countless level 9 divine kings in the depths, they could not afford to lose 20,000 people at once. 500, the most we can give is 500, otherwise we would rather not fight. The person who spoke first hesitated and said. Khan Ding glanced at them, a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes, he was too lazy to argue with them and said, all right, 500 each. 500 each, that was an army of more than 10,000 level 9 divine kings, it was still very scary. The meeting ended quickly, Khan Ding was the first to leave. Before he left, he glanced at the few people in the hall, called them cowards, and then spat a mouthful of thick phlegm on the ground. Being looked down upon like this, these people's expressions were extremely ugly, but they also seemed to be somewhat fearful of sweating Ding, not daring to act out. As a result, Han Ding became even more complacent and left while laughing loudly. After he left to gather information, the people who originally had ugly expressions immediately calmed down. Among them, a few had inexplicable smiles on their faces. An army of over 10,000 quickly gathered and set off for the outer perimeter. The one leading the army was Han Ding. Half a month later, this army met up with Zi Chen's army. Seeing the army of 9th grade divine kings, other than Zi Chen, everyone was shocked. Monk and the others were only at level 7, so it was not a problem for them to deal with a level 9. However, there were more than 10,000 level 9s in front of them. How could they fight? The same was true for Midi. Although the people she brought with her were elites, they were too few. She never expected to encounter this type of existence just by entering this place. This was undoubtedly equivalent to a great decisive battle. Compared to the changing expressions of the others, Zi Chen had a smile on his face. The battle couldn't go on like this forever. Someone had to break the stalemate. Now, that person had come. He looked at Han Ding. Han Ding stared coldly at Zi Chen and shouted, "You are the one who led the army to destroy our clansmen?" "That's right." Zi Chen walked forward. "I heard that you have a force that is fighting against my clansmen?" Han Ding asked again. His voice was still cold. "That's right." Zi Chen stopped after taking a few steps and looked at Han Ding. "Very good. My army of 10,000 people will destroy your force in one fell swoop after killing you small fries." Han Ding said coldly, "Your clansmen will become my food." Zi Chen smiled and said, "You won't have the chance." After saying that, a brilliance appeared in his hand. The brilliance turned into a longbow and the heavenly needle turned into an arrow. Zi Chen drew the bow and shot the arrow. The energy between heaven and earth surged towards Zi Chen. With Zi Chen as the center, an energy vortex with a radius of thousands of feet turned into a radius. He was the center of the vortex. Sensing this fluctuation, Han Ding shouted. For the first time, he lost his confidence. He should have gone forward to kill Zi Chen, but at this moment, he chose to defend. Buzz. His defense was fully activated. At the same time, he was incomparably annoyed. He thought that after blocking this attack, he would definitely teach his opponent a lesson. His defense was pushed to the limit. Only then did he feel that the pressure around him had dissipated. This made him feel at ease. The heavenly needle had finished accumulating power. Zi Chen released the arrow. The arrow flew out, leaving a black crack in the air that extended directly in front of Han Ding. With a bang, Han Ding's defense shattered. The arrow pierced through his heart. The armor that he was proud of was also pierced in an instant. A bloody hole appeared in his heart. His surging vitality disappeared along with the blood that flowed out. He opened his eyes wide and looked at Zi Chen in front of him in horror. In his line of sight, Zi Chen was becoming blurred. In the next moment, he disappeared. His body fell down. The battle hadn't even started and their commander was killed by an arrow. This caused the army of 10,000 ninth-grade divine kings to fall into chaos. Fortunately, they weren't real soldiers. They didn't need a commander. The ferocious nature that came from their bones was stimulated by them. Powerful killing intent surged. These 10,000 ninth-grade divine kings were about to kill Zichen. Buzz. The void trembled. Then, the space began to distort into countless fragments. A huge black hole descended from the sky and enveloped them in an instant. Zichen opened his world. This was his greatest killing weapon. In the blink of an eye, the 10,000 divine kings disappeared. The black hole also returned to normal. Misty and the heavenly god imperial guards that she led were dumbstruck. They were almost petrified. They had gone all the way and the greatest danger had been resolved just like that. What kind of sorcery was that black hole? How could it swallow 10,000 ninth-grade divine kings in one go? When they looked at Zichen again, they didn't see the slightest sign of exhaustion on his face. It was as if they had never seen Zichen expend so much energy in battle. After destroying this army of divine kings, Zichen didn't move forward. He just stood in place. No one knew what Zichen was thinking. A ray of light flew over from the distance. It was an alien. He was also a ninth-grade divine king. At this moment, he still had a frightened expression on his face. He cupped his fist at Zichen and said, "Hender greets my lord." Zichen looked at Hender and said, "Tell me why you're here." Chapter 3182. Zichen remained expressionless at Hen's words. Hend continued, "My men have already evacuated from your territory. I hope you can stop your advance." A cold smile appeared on Zichen's face as he snorted. Hend continued, "As long as you withdraw your troops, we are willing to compensate you." "What kind of compensation?" Zichen asked. "Law crystals condensed by the Queen Mother. Useful. It can increase the speed of a God King's breakthrough. Rank. It can be used by God Kings of the 5th or 6th rank and above. Quantity." Hend clenched his teeth and said, 100,000. Zichen said expressionlessly, 1,000,000. Hend looked embarrassed. Zichen said coldly, "If you refuse, I will take it myself." "Fine." Hend nodded. Also, Hend, who was about to leave, stopped when he heard Zichen's words. "Have your men withdraw. The divine realm is in a mess because of you." Zichen said, "Stop the invasion and return to your territory." This, Hend looked embarrassed. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "To be honest, there are disputes between the Queen Mothers. There are all kinds of disputes over benefits," and Zichen interrupted Hend and said, "1 more million crystals. I don't care if you fight to the death, but you are not to have any disputes with me." "Fine." Hend nodded again. He glanced at Zichen and left without waiting for further instructions. Misty and the others were dumbfounded. In just a few words, the battle had stopped. Even the compensation had been discussed. "Let's go." Zichen turned and the group began to return. This time, they had obtained a lot of low-grade resources from the Queen Mother's nest. Now that they had obtained some high-grade resources, it would be very beneficial for the development of Tree City. "Can we trust him?" Misty asked on the way back. "Of course." Zichen smiled and said, "If they're not trustworthy, then that's even better. I already know that they have high-level resources. When the time comes, I'll just go to the depths and take a look." Hearing this, Misty's expression became strange. She could already see the scene of Zichen teleporting to the depths of the forest and then pointing his longbow at the group of foreign race experts. When that time came, he would be able to get as many resources as he wanted. After reaching an agreement with Zichen, Hender headed back into the depths of the forest. Along the way, several level 9 experts followed him. One of them said, "Sir, since Zichen is so powerful, why don't we choose to side with him?" Hend said, "He's dead for sure." "But..." The level 9 expert thought about how to phrase it and said, "But he is only level 8 now, and no one can kill him. Once he reaches level 9, who can defeat him? Even if he's fighting for the last spot, he's still the undisputed number 1, right?" Hender looked at this subordinate and said with a smile, "You can see this point, but do you think we can't see it?" This subordinate doesn't dare. The level 9 expert said with fear and trepidation. Zi Chen is different from the rest. No matter how great his potential is, there won't be a share for him in the end. This is something that has long been predestined. Once the situation stabilizes, it will be his death. This is an outcome that can't be changed, but it is undeniable that he is very strong. That's why we are willing to pay a huge amount of compensation to stop the war. Outside the City of Trees, the battle was still going on fiercely. This battle had been going on for a long time and no one knew when it would stop. Perhaps it would never stop until one side was completely exhausted. However, this battle that was going to continue for an unknown amount of time was suddenly followed by a sharp sound. The foreign race army suddenly began to retreat. Like a receding tide, all the foreign races retreated. On the battlefield, everyone was startled. They didn't understand why the foreign races retreated. Those tall ancient tree giants suddenly lost their enemies, so they looked around in confusion. The enemy's retreat appeared very abnormal. When Fina heard the news, she came to the sky above the battlefield. After seeing that the enemy had already retreated far away, she seemed to have thought of something and said, "Retreat, the war is over." The battle had continued until now with countless casualties. At this moment, with Fina announcing the end of the war, everyone felt like a heavy burden was lifted off their shoulders. Those dark heavenly ants once again hid underground. Those ancient tree giants walked towards the dense forest. They were extremely strong and had very terrifying defenses. They were war machines. They came to the dense forest and curled up their bodies together, turning into one ancient tree after another. Outside the battlefield, the corpses that were strewn all over the ground were swept clean in an instant. Apart from the traces left on the battlefield, there was nothing else. Those divine races that participated in the war returned to the city and then started celebrating. When Zi Chen brought everyone back, the battle was already over. The city was very lively. "Looks like they really kept their word," Monk said regretfully. "There won't be any more battles after this." Those foreign races had retreated. He believed that the other divine races in this area would not dare to make a move against them. "What do you plan to do next?" Yi Qian looked at Zi Chen. "Develop slowly and wait for a breakthrough in realm." Zi Chen was 1 level away from rank 9. Yi Qian and the others were 2 levels away. What followed was definitely a long period of peace. During this period, they would naturally focus on cultivation and development. The group returned to the city. Jolina asked about the situation of the battle. After learning that there would be no battles for a long time, Jolina said decisively, "We need to build a city." "Build a city? A city of trees?" Zi Chen asked. "No, a divine city, just like Toby City in the past, is mainly about trade," Xiaolina said. "Will there be people coming to trade? Is this the age of turmoil?" Zi Chen asked. "Of course. The more chaotic it is, the more valuable it is for a city of trade to appear. The speed at which it accumulates popularity is even faster than Toby City." Seeing how confident Jolina was, Zi Chen did not refuse. He only told Jolina that if she needed any resources, she could just ask for them from the treasury. The current tree city had already taken shape. It had all kinds of resources. However, to get these resources, contribution points were needed. And these points were earned by going out and fighting. Jolina led some powerhouses out and began to look for a place to settle down. A place to settle down first needed a large amount of resources. Fortunately, in the last battle, Zi Chen had destroyed many cities. These cities were still empty, and no one came from nearby. It was not difficult to find a good place to settle down. After wandering around for a year, Jolina finally found a suitable place to settle down. The city was called Yongding City, which meant eternal peace. After settling down, Jolina first arranged a large-scale auction. This time, she took out many resources, including the Godly King's soul essences from the Godly King's celestial domain. Chapter 3183. This time, Xiaolina had obtained the most authority, so she mobilized countless resources from Tree City. Just the mother nest resources alone had been taken out, and during this period of time, she had allocated over 100,000 resources. Although the realm of gods was in chaos and the major factions didn't have the time to slowly nurture a son of God, the realm of gods was still the realm of gods to the wandering cultivators and minor factions. It was just a little more dangerous. They still had to survive, break through, and find a way to obtain cultivation resources. This time, Jolene took out the most resources from the city of gods. These were the lowest level existences in the realm of gods, so they were the most plentiful. Under Jolene's careful arrangements, the news spread quickly and spread even further. The auction was set to take place half a year later. When the gods heard the news, the first thing they remembered was the name Yongding City. In these chaotic times, the appearance of such a city seemed to have a deeper meaning. While the news spread, Yongding City was still under construction. Because they had experience in building cities before, other than the auction house, all kinds of supporting facilities were being built together. For example, restaurants and all kinds of material stores. Jolene was busy with the construction of the city, and in the meantime, she brought a few experts with her. In the current 10th domain, only a few major factions posed a threat to Jolene. However, those major factions should be aware of the situation here and could guess the true meaning of Yongding City. They probably wouldn't come looking for trouble. After all, the outsiders had been attacking the City of Trees for so long and had no choice but to retreat. What could they do? In Sacred King Sander's residence, he was very surprised to hear that the outsiders were retreating. Why are they retreating just like that? His expression darkened. He'd never thought that the outsiders would retreat. Chen is too strong. We had no choice but to retreat. The 9th rank outsider was also present, and his face was full of wry smiles. But what do we do next? Do we just let him continue to exist? Isn't that like a fishbone in our throat? Don't worry, my lord. Even if he continues to exist, even if his battle prowess is unparalleled, he still won't get that opportunity in the end, the 9th rank outsider said with certainty. Oh, is that true? Sacred King Sanders turned his head and stared at the level 9 alien in surprise. Absolutely. This made Sacred King Sandini relax a lot. He said, in that case, let's proceed according to our plan. There can only be one king in this area. This time, our people will definitely act, but my lord. The outsider looked at God King Sanderson. Sandini waved his hand. Don't worry. This is a battle of destiny. Even if there is only one person left, I will do my best. That's for the best. Originally, because of Chen's Tree City, the other forces had temporarily calmed down the war, but this time, the war broke out again. This time, the scale of the war would be huge. They would definitely unify the former 10th domain. Under such circumstances, the existence of Yongding City was even more precious. Hence, when the auction started half a year ago, many deities had already gathered in the city. They were of different levels, from god envoys to god kings. Among them, there were naturally people from other forces. However, after they arrived, they had to behave themselves. Compared to the rogue cultivators and small forces, they knew very well who the owner of Yongding City was. There were no accidents in this auction. All kinds of resources were sold out. As for what would happen after leaving the city, Jolene couldn't care less. She could only guarantee the safety of the city. After the auction ended, many people took the opportunity to contact Jolene while they went backstage to retrieve their items. They wanted to build some shops in the city. Jolene naturally didn't refuse them. Her original goal was to make the city prosperous. As time passed, these shops would continue to expand. Then, weapon workshops would appear, and all kinds of powerful weapons would be formed here. Outside Yongding City, there were space-time creatures everywhere. They were of different levels, and enemies of any level were available. In the city, there were space-time creatures that specialized in training. As long as you killed them, you would be able to obtain the corresponding materials. The war in the 10th domain continued. All the forces were fighting. Many deities participated in the war, but there were still many deities who didn't want to risk their lives for those people. Hence, when they heard about Yongding City, many people came to settle down here. They killed space-time creatures outside the city, obtained some resources, and then brought them to the city to exchange. At the same time, Shops appeared one after another. Those shops were either backed by aristocratic families or forces. They could bring in a group of people. In the 10th year since the city was built, Yongding City's popularity was no less than Toby City. This was naturally due to the increasingly fierce war in the 10th domain. Jolene kept expanding the city, but still couldn't keep up with the speed of people moving in. It was extremely rare for a city to not have a single battle in 10 years amidst the chaos. Hence, Jolene started to build a second city. In fact, the 10 domains in the realm of the gods were all in the same situation. If a city was built in another domain, it would be just as popular. Countless resources would enter the city every day. Unfortunately, the 10 domains were too far apart. Without a teleportation portal, it was very troublesome to manage. Hence, it was abandoned. However, even in the 10th domain, it was enough to build a few hundred or even a few thousand popular Yongding cities. Hence, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th cities appeared one after another. After 100 years, 10 Yongding cities appeared in the realm of the gods. These 10 Yongding cities were all interconnected with teleportation portals. In order to build these teleportation portals, Jolene spent a lot of resources. However, compared to the daily income of the 10 cities, these resources were nothing. Some of them were even provided by the shops for free. Jolene only needed to reduce some of the taxes. The war continued for 100 years, but it didn't stop. Instead, it became more and more intense. All the forces were fighting with real fire. Various private armies joined the battlefield. At the same time, many foreign races also joined the war. Under such circumstances, the divine race army was constantly faced with an endless stream of foreign races. Even though the leaders repeatedly improved the treatment, many people still chose to leave and join Yongding City. Yongding City was still expanding, but every city could reach the peak of popularity in a very short period of time. The war was still going on. Zichen was still in seclusion. His avatar was still in a deep sleep and had yet to wake up. Chapter 3184. The chaos in the divine world was still going on. Yongding City had expanded by one city every 10 years. At this moment, it had 20 cities. Tyrant, Zhonghaotian, Demon Ape, and the others were arranged to guard those cities. The other cities were guarded by the experts from the God King Heaven territory. The king list of the divine world had gradually lost its credibility because Zichen, who had killed Thorpe, wasn't on the list. Besides them, Tai Jian and the others had the strength to be on the list. Apparently, Tai Jian and the others weren't on the list. As time flew, the number of experts in the City of Trees was increasing. After Su Mengyaro reached level 8, she ended her seclusion and stepped on the teleport formation to return to the Life Star. The place she was standing on used to be called the Barbarian Land. Now, it was the Holy Land. Not many people knew the history of this area. Su Mengyaro had spent half a year to carefully investigate this holy land. Then, she returned to the divine world and woke up Zichen, who was still in seclusion. "You want to develop a force in the Life Star?" Hearing Su Mengyaro, Zichen was surprised. The divine world had more resources and a much bigger area. Moreover, it was connected to the passage to the Life Star. Everyone on the Life Star could use the passage to come to the divine world. It seemed that there was no need to go back and develop. "You know that my cultivation technique is special. This time, I've done a deduction in the divine world. Although I didn't get anything, I have a bad feeling. I feel that something big is going to happen in the divine world. It's necessary to leave a force in the Life Star," said Su Mengyaro. "What do you plan to do?" asked Zichen. "You go and inform those forces to move out of the Holy Land. I've decided to build the base of my force there. That's the first step. In the future, as the force continues to develop, perhaps we can use the entire continent." This was the main reason why Su Mengyaro had woken up Zichen from his seclusion. "All right." Zichen nodded without hesitation. With his current strength and position, it wasn't too troublesome to make those people leave the Holy Land. Although this would cause losses to the aristocratic families, it would be fine as long as Zichen gave them a certain amount of compensation. No matter what, this Life Star was connected to him in many ways. Many aristocratic families had sent their forefather-level experts to Tree City. Zi Chen decided to return to the Life Star immediately. Su Mengyaro arranged the others to deal with the aftermath. After returning to the Life Star, Zi Chen walked directly to the Everlasting Sect. Although the sect he had built wasn't as lively as it used to be, it was still the most mysterious sect on this Life Star. At the same time, it was the sect that all young people wanted to join. "You are the current sect master?" In the room, Qin Zheng had just finished his training. Just as he opened his eyes, he heard a voice by his ear. Startled, he slowly turned his head and saw a young man sitting not far away. To be able to sneak into the Wuji sect and into his room without triggering the formation, this person was clearly a true expert. "Who are you?" Qin Zheng gazed at this young man. He found his face familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him before. All of a sudden, Qin Zheng's eyes sparkled as he screamed in surprise, "Forefather, you are Zi Chen." He finally remembered, his face so excited. If Zi Chen hadn't gently waved his hand, sending a beam of energy to Qin Zheng, he would have knelt down. "Greetings, Forefather." Qin Zheng was so excited. He didn't expect to see the forefather's face. "No need to be so polite. I'm here this time because I have something to tell you," said Zi Chen. "Forefather, please tell me." "You go and inform all the masters of the aristocratic families in the Holy Land. Tell them that I want to discuss the relocation of the forces with them," said Zi Chen. "Relocation of the forces?" Qin Zheng was bewildered. "Right. I want to establish a new force in this Holy Land. All the aristocratic families and all the creatures in this area must leave this place. You can discuss what they want and tell me later." "Yes, I'll do it right away." This wasn't a small matter, so Qin Zheng didn't dare to delay. He immediately sent someone to deliver the message. The fact that the forefather Zi Chen had personally summoned everyone shocked all the families. They didn't dare to delay and rushed over as quickly as possible. Because the laws of this world had increased, the heaven and earth spirit qi had become extremely abundant. There were as many experts as there were clouds, so this holy land gave birth to many aristocratic families. This was the first time that the patriarchs of these aristocratic families had seen the legendary Zi Chen. Their expressions became extremely excited. In the space hall of the Wuji sect, Zi Chen looked at everyone and said, "I'm sure everyone knows why I've gathered everyone here. This matter is non-negotiable. I will take all of this holy land. Perhaps in the future, we will take over even more places on this continent." Everyone was silent and didn't express any opinions. With Zi Chen's current strength and forces, they would naturally do whatever he said. "If you want any compensation, feel free to ask. As long as it's within our means, we will give it." Zi Chen said, "In addition, we can give you some spots in the first batch of trial areas that we will be building. If you want a spot in the future, you will have to fight for it yourselves." "Sir, what kind of trial areas are you talking about?" Someone mustered up the courage to ask. Zi Chen said, "For now, it will be the Saint Realm. It won't be lower than the Heaven Realm. As for the higher levels, it will be the Divine Envoys and Divine Generals. For now, there won't be any Divine Kings. For these people, the Saint Realm trial areas were the most useful. The other higher level trial areas weren't something they could come into contact with. I'll give you 3 days to discuss what kind of compensation you want. Then, I'll give you half a year to evacuate. As for the other creatures in this area, I will inform them to leave." Evidently, these people could tell from Zi Chen's words that there wouldn't be a single creature left in this holy land. Half a year to choose a place and leave. Although the time was short, these people had to agree. Zi Chen continued, "As for the small worlds that each of you controls, take those that you can. As for those that you can't, I'll have someone use a powerful technique to move those small worlds outside of the sacred grounds. Then, you can claim them yourselves." Everyone nodded and immediately rushed back to their families. At the same time, Zi Chen had returned to the God world. Su Mengyao's first batch of people had arrived at the Life Star and started to discuss the compensation. Su Mengyao appeared in the original burial ground, holding a glowing seed in her hand. She put the seed on the ground. The seed took root and sprouted, turning into a giant ancient tree. The ancient tree grew rapidly and became a king tree.